Alrighty. We are here with episode 6. God, we have 6 episodes already. Isn't that crazy?
Let's have a party.
Episode 6 of the Automana podcast. Welcome. Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the wonderful, the real Shiesty. He finally changed his name on social media, so I'm able to add him there now.
Wait. It's been there. I just haven't been utilizing it. That's the difference.
It's been
But now we're
collecting
gonna start
dust.
utilizing it.
How you doing, good sir?
Overall, pretty well. Pretty well. I got some stories to share, personal life, but we'll get into that very briefly here.
All right. Well, as we always like to do, I just want to talk about the few games because so far there hasn't been many topics where we have talked about games. But recently, I started playing a game called What Remains of Edith Finch. I believe that's what it's called. It's a very short game. It's a very narrative driven game. What people basically call it a walking simulator. But the whole thing about this game is that it was great. The story was fantastic. But when I finished it, I felt so depressed because it was so sad.
Really?
Have you ever played a game where you're like, you really enjoy the story, but the story is just so sad?
Oh my god. Not to the point of depressing, like
Well, I
you
wouldn't say
say.
I wouldn't say like
mean,
depression where I had to go cry in a pillow, but like I just felt like like there was no happy ending. It's like the sunshine went away. It's just dark clouds and gloom all over.
I've obviously been invested in story and characters. I mean, talk about games. I'm still playing the Octopath game on the mobile, which was I loved that story too. Um, but not depressed, not to where it's like the closure was left in a negative light. Like, not that I could think of off the top of my head. Um, so yeah, I don't really have an answer for you like that. But have I been emotionally like driven by characters and the story arcs? Oh, countless of times, yes, for sure.
Okay, because I know you're probably not going to play this game because it doesn't seem like it's around your road. And this, it's a very old game. I think this game came out like 2000s. Well, I wouldn't say really old, but it came out in 2017. But the whole
Mm-hmm.
idea is you're going to this house to revisit your family story, and you're basically figuring out what happened, whatever. But you think you're playing as a very specific character, and as you're going through this house, learning the family history, you realize that they all die in very sad ways. And then
Mm.
when you get to the very end, it's like you thought that there's gonna be a happy ending, but it's like the character that you were telling is just like, nope, no happy ending there either.
Not gonna happen. It happened to your whole family. It's gonna happen to you too.
Yeah, and
Um,
it ranges too. Like you would see people that die in like the 30s, but the majority of the people that died don't even reach 11.
oh,
And like one and what even one of the ones which almost made me like it hit me the most is there was a 1 year old. They depict his death, and they do it in a very creative way where he's in a bathtub, he's playing, and it's all imaginative with him playing with frogs, rubber ducks, and he's making his own little world. But because his mom went to go get to
the
take
toaster.
a phone call, they didn't realize that the baby turned the water on and basically drowned himself.
Mm,
And
interesting.
it was like that. Oh, it was so sad watching this happen. It's like he was so happy he was orchestrating his own little play world, but then as the water rised, he knew exactly what was happening, and the ending was like, what was it? Gregory enters his own little world, and I'm like, he. It's like it was an
So
interesting
only.
way to say a 1 year old died, and I just felt so sad about that.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've played a game that had that type of storytelling to be sad about. I think if my gameplay ends, even if it's on a happy note, I'm just sad that it's ended, and that would be the depressing part. Yeah, I definitely can't think of anything offhand. Especially, I mean, not to say that was like a horror game or a scary game because it didn't sound like one, but I generally, yeah, I've never really gravitated to those type of game styles and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't think I have one. I don't think I have one.
Has there been any story that's impacted you? It doesn't have to be in like a negative way. Like anything that's impacted, like when you're done, you just think about it for a couple of days.
I, once again, so many. I mean, even like a Mario Odyssey probably did that for me, if I'm being honest. And I mean, and that's not like a very deep thought storytelling type of game. It's just like, oh my god, that was awesome. Um, but yeah, almost like every Final Fantasy does that for me for sure. And Zelda, but Zelda's um, also not that story driven like that. It's a different type of storytelling. Um, but mostly RPGs, definitely any RPG, even outside of Final Fantasy, because they are very deep with storytelling.
Mm.
Um, Trying to think of anything else recently. Um, Even if it was like kind of like not even a popular one. Uh, I mean, sometimes Animal Crossing was depressing too.
What was depressing about Animal Crossing?
I didn't make enough bells for that day,
Not enough turnips.
or my turnip stock betrayed me, and I lost like millions of money due to a bad investment. Um, yeah, I mean, mostly RPGs. I mean, it's always been RPGs for me,
I,
going even way back when.
it seems like the stories that stick. Like obviously, I'm like you. I enjoy every story I play, but
Mhm.
it seems like the ones that stick with me the most are like the psychological ones. Like I think the last game that stuck with me that wasn't negative was
Mhm.
Black Ops 3 because the whole idea of the ending is that you basically go into a simulation, your conscious can hop between different realities and you never really die and you don't know who's who. Like you thought you were playing as one character, but then you realize the consciousness that took you over earlier is someone else. I love stories that will mess with your mind and make you think and then theory craft, and then once you come to your own conclusion you basically make that your story.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I thought about that game for like maybe 5 days after I played. I'm like, oh dude, that was so crazy. And then the follow-up, like Black Ops 4 and all that stuff, it basically says that those games no longer matter because of the ending of Black Ops 3 because everything is just alternate reality.
Just erased,
Yeah.
retconned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be disappointing. I think that's why a lot of people get upset with WoW sometimes because they've done that once or twice. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, Final Fantasy VII had me emotional a couple times. I think the end of 10, when he finally fights, spoilers, when he finally fights his father, that kind of got pretty deep. Knowing that he would have to kill him. Um, yeah, there's different times in different games that definitely invoke some emotions.
It's funny that you
For sure.
said Final Fantasy because I'm thinking of like as much as people like to worship Sephiroth as like the ultimate bad guy, his story is sad. Like he was basically a soldier that what was it? If I'm remembering his story correctly, he was a
It was
soldier. He worked with this group, but then scientists realized he had this special connection with the planet, or whatever. Then he was basically turned to this experiment, captured into like a tube, tortured, and all that stuff till he broke free and turned to the angel form and killed everyone he knew.
Yeah, he was pretty much considered an ancient, which was someone that was there for with the planet for way 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 back. So therefore, they thought they're then now the best and type of race in the world. Um, and then he was kind of he was actually messed with while he was still in his mother. Like they were injecting Mako in him and all this other crap. So like he was like not really artificially created, but kind of in a way. So like he was an experiment from like before even being born. So yeah, it's very. I wouldn't say he really got tortured though. I don't think that would be a correct term.
Oh, I
He was
thought they
probably
tortured him
he
when he
was
was in the tubes.
no. That was something future that happened that he kind of like. How can I put it? I don't want to say isolated him his own self, but like they're I wouldn't say he was ever really tortured. Put it that way. Like experimented and stuff, yes, but can you say he was mentally tortured? 110%. I think the same could be said that with the same could be said with Cloud because Cloud was really like he just truly lost his identity to the extent that he legit thought he was like somebody else.
Hmm. Yeah, he
Which
thought he was his captain.
he just like I think it's just really cool. But I'm trying to think of damn like as I'm talking and listening to you, I was like, what else is really really good? Um, but yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of RPGs that involve. I mean, like I said, going back to Octopath, I keep talking and raving about Octopath, but even this one that I'm playing now, Like, I kid you not, and I'm not saying it just because it's all so fresh now, but like when I'm playing that game and going through the story arc, like there were times that my jaw dropped because I didn't expect certain things to happen. And it just reminded me so much of like Game of Thrones type of stuff. It's like, whoa, what the fuck? Like,
Hmm.
why did they do that? And like I could like,
Incest.
well, not the instance, thank God. But funny on the one thing you got to is incest. No, it's just like, just killing of characters. The simplicity of killing characters is just like, to me, still very large and shocking when it comes to video games. And going back to FF7 for a moment, like that's what makes the death of Aerith so huge, because once again, I've never played every single game that existed before that game, but it was kind of unheard of to kill off a character, or even if you thought a character was getting killed. Like there was a previous Final Fantasy where one character got killed, but then she ended up returning as an adult, so she wasn't never really killed. She just like went away, gathered all these powers, and came back. So I think that's what makes it such a memorable thing, because like there was no game, or very few, that went that route to actually kill off a character that you were investing time to level up and power up, and now poof, they're gone. You're like, what the fuck? And then you're playing the game thinking, oh, maybe she'll come back. Maybe she'll come back. Never comes back. So that could be a depressing part too, I guess, for some people. It wasn't too depressing for me, but I'm pretty sure there were people out there that were depressed.
Dude, this winter I plan on doing like an RPG marathon of like Octopath is still high on my list, and I'm probably actually gonna play it this month for September, or whatever Twitch calls it.
Yeah.
But then I also want to replay all the Final Fantasy games, because I haven't played them all in like maybe 3 years, and I can platinum them on PlayStation Premium.
So when you say play Octopath finally, you're not talking about the mobile version, right? You're talking about
the console version. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna play it on Xbox.
So like I will say this, as much as I love the console version, because I do, the storytelling is far more better in the mobile game versus the console game. Console game is really different with their storytelling. Like it's not they tell their story so like non-linear and so indirect that you kind of have to put it together yourself, much like how I kind of complained about Final Fantasy 15. But for whatever reason, the format in Octopath, I thought it fit that game well, and that's why I appreciated it more in that game versus I did in 15. So I just want to throw that out there. Still a fabulous game, don't get me wrong, I loved it, but the storytelling in the mobile version is far more superior.
Even though I deleted Octopath from my phone, I still get notifications from it.
Oh, really? What the hell? How does that happen?
It's like, update, new character was just released. And I was like, what? And obviously, this was like 4 or 5 days ago, whatever. But I was just like,
still, if you uninstalled it, how are you still getting push notifications? That's so weird.
I thought it was you possessing my phone at first.
I'll
make this deal with you. If they can ever turn Octopath Champions of the Continent into a like compatible with like a controller, I'll play it 100%, because like I said, I played it for 5 hours. I thought the game was good. I just can't get past the mobile like touching.
No, I'm with you. It's not great. I'm used to it now. It takes time to get used to, but I concur. Like it would be easier played on a controller, whatever. You know what? I don't know. Maybe I'll do the research for you, but I'm wondering if you actually could just use a controller for it.
Because unfortunately, iPhones don't have a stylus. This is like the one negative. I have the Apple Pen for the iPad, and it's like I have both generations. They don't work with iPhones, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And I love the Apple Pen a lot. I use it for my iPad all the time, but it sucks I can't use it on phone.
You look so defeated when you say that.
It's like the one dumb thing Apple. It's like they don't switch to USB-C, and they don't let their Apple Pen work with the iPhone. It's like it's like they should be compatible. It's the same device.
It's their same IP, which doesn't make sense. It's their own peripheral. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
Now that's a Nintendo move. If I knew one.
It's funny. A lot of people hate me because whenever I talk about products I like, I will call out a product I like if they do something stupid. Like I'm so loyal where I'm willing to call out their faults so they can get better.
I mean, sometimes it's fine. It's okay. I mean, it's just, you know, when we talk, especially when we get passionate about Nintendo, like I still think that the huge difference between our discussions and our Discord is I'm okay with it versus you're not. And like you said, you do it because you want it to be better, and I agree. I wish it would be better too, but like I know what I'm getting out of that company. I know what I'm getting with that product, and I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that.
It's funny. There was actually a comment on one of the videos that says, "I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm a Nintendo hater," and I'm like, I love Nintendo. I bet Nintendo was one of the first consoles besides PlayStation One is that I've actually played. So I've been a Nintendo fan for such a long time. I'm not a Nintendo hater. I love it. It's just I want to be better.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I feel you. But it's like, I mean, I get you because it's not like you're boycotting it or anything.
No,
You
I've
know,
got
it's
the
like
Switch. I
it's just
play the games.
yeah. But I feel you. I feel you. In that regard, I agree. But like at the same time, like I said, I
Could
know what
agree.
I'm getting. I know what my expectations are when it comes to them, and that's cool. They're still making their money. They're still, in my opinion, and figuratively, they are still number one. So they're doing something right. That's all I'm saying.
Sales right now, but that might change with the Steam Deck.
So,
Before we go on that, I have to ask you a question.
yes.
For some reason, after we started the podcast, my allergies just flared up horribly, and I
Ooh,
wondered if yours did too.
no.
Like for some reason, like like right here, you get that feeling where you gotta sneeze the whole time. It's like you just want to hold it down, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I
no.
can't do that.
However, I think it was our last podcast with Badger or the one before that. Legit, right after the podcast, I became this horrible sneezy chew. Like, I was like, holy shit! Like, how did I go through the entire? It's not that I was withholding it. Like, I didn't have the sensation at all. But the moment we were done, it just like slapped me in the face. I started sneezing. Eyes started watering, and I had to take an antihistamine right away. It was just so weird. So like, it's not affecting me now, but I feel you. I get what you're saying, and that's the shitty part about allergies, right? They just like come out of nowhere
So
and
I have to
just
ask you a question. Do you hold an allergy? Well, not hold, but like, do you have an allergy pill bottle wherever you sleep or game?
nah. I mean, it's 10 feet away from me, but it's not like on
But
my
it's nearby.
desk. Yeah. It's nearby, but it's not like nearby within grasp. The only
Did
thing that's nearby in grasp with me is my inhaler, and ironically enough, it's still not that close to me. But usually it would be my inhaler, but not an allergy pill now.
because I got one by my nights, well, where I put my stuff. I have one on my desk and one in the bathroom.
I have a bottle at work and a bottle at home.
That makes sense.
So yeah.
I think the only reason why I have one on my desk is because sometimes when I stream very long and my allergies act up, I'm just like, all right, pop a pill like a Tic Tac, and that's it.
Normally, I don't pop it at first symptom. Like I like to just try and see where it's going first, because like I'm really against taking pills in general. So I really try to avoid it unless I feel like I have to. So yeah, that's why I even if it's one eye watery, one nostril runny, I usually try to tolerate that. But
When it gets to the point where it's like makes you angry or intolerable, it's just like you gotta pop one.
yeah,
And even then, like depending on how bad it flares up, even allergy medicine will help you.
oh yeah. There are times where um, it don't matter. Yeah, to your point, it just won't work. I even got to the point, like at least for my eyes, I've finally graduated to even using drops if they're bad, because I used to never use drops until like literally like not even a year ago. Um, just not that it's just because like I like finally need them, but I do now realize that they do alleviate that symptom a lot more easier than with the pill on top of it. So
One thing, I'm not sure if you've done this, but whenever my eyes itch, which it's always one or the other, and or
mhm.
sometimes if it's really bad, both.
Mhm.
I don't take any pills for that. What I do is I get like a towel or like a paper towel, whatever, and just wet it and just put it on my eyes for like 5 minutes, and it gets better.
I have tried that. It doesn't work for me, unfortunately. It feels fantastic. It feels awesome. but it doesn't relieve anything for me.
Interesting.
Um,
I guess we all
I,
have our weird ways to alleviate pain or whatever allergy symptoms.
and I also think that also goes to biology, and it works for you, didn't work for me. That's cool, but you know,
Yeah,
it
because
happens. I just hate I don't know which I hate worse. When my eyes are watery or when my eyes are dry. Because like when they're dry, like
dry and itchy because they get sore after you do this all the time.
it's very rare I'll get them feeling sore from rubbing them. That's very, very rare. For me, it's like the ends here will get super dry, and then like obviously here, and then yeah. And then sometimes you get the weird one where it's like it feels dry, but they're also lubricating frequently, and it's like which way are you going here? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
It's like it's just like what's going on? Which way are you going? Just fucking pick a route so I can deal with it.
Have you ever used a neti pot?
I've never used one before, but I've heard fantastic things.
I have a lot of people that, or my mom, my grandma. I have no other friends that use it. They love it, and it helps them out greatly. I
Mm-hmm.
can't use it because of my congestion being so bad where it blocks the passage to the other side. So
Mm.
instead, it gives me
So,
really bad nosebleeds.
oh, I was going to say I thought you maybe feel like you're drowning,
Well, that too, but
which
like,
may be the same, yeah.
but because of like was it solution saline, whatever, that it's like
Uh-huh.
salt water, whatever, it goes in my nose, gets stuck there because of the congestion and starts dripping to my throat. But because it gets stuck there, blood comes out too.
Wow, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I know, like I've never used it, so I don't know if that would happen to me. But like even dry nose, like I've actually this kind of happens kind of frequent. Like I tend to break blood vessels a lot in my nostrils, so I'll not that it bleeds to where it runs out of my nostrils, but
It's like
just
dry
by
blood that sticks to like your sides.
there's that, or even when I am like using tissue, like it'll be coming out full of blood, and I thought it was mocos, I thought it was snot, so but
I don't even want to show my
turns out it
stuff
wasn't.
because I know exactly what you're talking about. It's
Yeah,
disgusting. And
yeah.
sometimes I'll show like my mom or like my brother. I'm like, "Does this look normal to you?" And they're like, "Why are you showing me that?" And I'm like, "I want to make sure I'm not dying here. It's black."
I want to make sure I'm not dying here. Yeah. Oh, the beauty of allergies. It's a brand new podcast.
It's what a lot of people suffer with. Like, dude, there's been so many times where I just want to like lay in the grass, and I can't even lay in the grass because it like makes my skin itch. It seems like the
Well,
outside environment is like my debuff.
I don't. I mean, I'm sure there are. I know there are. Let me restate that. I know there are things that will, you know, uh, trigger allergies or even skin allergies, but not that bad. I don't think. But it depends on what you're rolling in. It's like, I mean, if you're rolling in a freaking bed of ragweed or freaking, then yeah, it's probably gonna happen. But I could lay in fresh grass, like that's no problem.
I could sit. I think my arms get affected the most, and then also the grass that seems to. I don't know if this is because it's cut and it releases some kind of thing, but whenever
Hmm.
I cut the grass and like grass clippings get on my legs, it starts making my leg itch.
Well, it, I can't poo-poo if it's actually grass or not, but I want to also say that while you're cutting the grass, you may also be cutting weeds as well,
That's all.
and
Yeah, it's possible.
and some other micro stuff that you're not even familiar with that probably would be triggering those allergies. I'm not ruling out grass in its own right. I'm
Eh,
just
I know for a fact I'm allergic to grass, but your point to weeds is also true because that could be hitting you like I don't know what the weeds are called, but it's like the ones that get like the little spikes on them. I know those can cause you know itchiness.
yeah, what are those called? Just like sticklers or stickies,
Yeah, and
something.
they're everywhere too. Like they can grow on anyone's grass.
Yeah. I haven't had to deal with those in a long time.
Yeah, because you live
I don't
in.
know.
I mean, do you want to? I, mean, I was about to say it, but do you want to go to that now?
Sure, I guess so. Talk about living arrangements. So, yeah. So I brought up, at least I felt like I brought up in the podcast a few times, but and I know on my own personal one I have on my stream, but so I'm in the process of selling my condo, or dare I still continuously say, attempting to sell my condo, because what I'm learning here is, um, you could project or agree upon a closing date, but you're never going to be fully closed until both parties sign on that dotted line. Just, legally go through, buyer, seller, deal done. It's official. So with that said, in preparations of, I have been looking at apartments and whatnot, but so rewind, excuse me, back to yesterday was a huge day for me looking at apartments. I looked at like 6 different apartments, spent pretty much all day, even left work early. The first one was the one I fell in love with, and that's kind of crazy to say, falling in love with an apartment, because I was looking at it to be a short-term thing anyway. But this place was fucking massive. It was bigger than my condo now. It was like in a high-rise building, high up there, beautiful view. It was gorgeous. And then he told me there was an applicant on it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, well, can I still apply? And he's like, yeah, you can still apply. Something might happen, but fine. So I did that after everything else I looked at, came home. It was like 9 p.m. Did that, emailed it back. Today at work, calls me and says, if you could sign the lease, you could get the apartment. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, let me get with my realtor, see what's going on, because I really want to go in this place. Call my realtor up. I'm like, what's going on? Is this official yet? And he's like, well, everything seems to be official, but as I said before, nothing's official until you both sign. And I'm like, so here we go through this bullshit again. I said, fuck. I'm like, okay. So I call back the apartment people again. I'm like, look, I want it, but I don't have an actual closing date yet. Like, he's telling me everything's going fine. They're doing the underwriting. It's kind of like in the last steps. And then he's telling me, he's like, well, we see that you got a mortgage, and, and once you sign this lease, you're legally bound by it. You're a 12-month commitment. So they could take me, like, God forbid, if this doesn't close and I sign that lease, they could take me to court, and now I have to pay a whole year of rent. And on top of that, my mortgage.
So hold on. Did you actually see the apartment in person, or you had to sign the lease in order to see the apartment?
No, I saw the apartment.
Okay, because I was like, when you said you had to sign the lease to see it, I'm like, that sounds sketchy.
If I said that, I apologize. That's not what I meant. No, I seen it.
Okay, because I was like, dude, that's super sketchy. Signing a lease before you see it, it's like,
no, absolutely not. No, that would be pure stupidity. No. I went and saw it. That's what I'm saying. It was gorgeous. I loved it. It was so big, dude. Like, the amount of furnishes I have, you would probably walk in there and be like, why do you have this place? Because I wouldn't have enough stuff to fit and fill it up. That's how big it was. Anyways, so the guy told me straight, he's like, look, man, like, I'm not, telling you what to do or anything, but he's like, I would hate for you to sign this lease. Now you're obligated, and then for whatever reason, you don't close on your condo. Now you're basically, he pretty much told me straight up, like, look, man, if you sign this lease, we're going to make you pay for it. Is basically what he was saying.
At least he was upfront about it. That's what matters.
No, and I appreciate that. I was like, dude, I appreciate your transparency. And I said, and I understand that. I said, that's been what I've been kind of getting on my realtor about, because, he's also been trying to, and rightfully so, try to, help me get a place as well, because so I don't, quote unquote, end up homeless. So I get it. But the whole reality of the situation is, this doesn't close until all that paperwork's done. So I called back and I said, I have to respectfully decline, as much as I really want to end up there. But as soon as I close, I will seek out again and see, just in case. If it's meant to be, then it's meant to be. And then if it's still available, or if something else opens up by then, which I highly doubt, then, maybe then I could sign with having no fear of whether or not this place is going to close or not. So basically, that, where I stand now is I'm just not looking for a place at all right now, because the stress that I dealt with today, just from that one scenario, is not working for me right now. I just got to go through the motions here. I'm just going to take this one step at a time, make sure it closed. That way I have no reservations. I could sign wherever the hell I can actually sign and be done with it and be, clear conscious about it.
If you
So
don't
that's
mind
that.
me asking, obviously I know you
Yeah.
can't say a date, but wasn't your closing for your condo supposed to be within like a week from now?
Yeah, pretty much.
And so there's been no word if it's official, because usually this is when you like hear the time.
So according to my realtor, like that should be coming soon. The timing of all this isn't also in my favor, not to kind of make excuses, but here we're entering a 3-day weekend, right?
Mm.
Uh, Also, for me personally, next week I'm going out of state. So I'm losing a few days of possibly moving with that move, or I'm sorry, that move with that trip. So September, I knew ahead of time was going to be a very busy, very hectic month, and these additional layers, don't make it any easier. So basically, I'm already content that although this process may suck for other reasons, but I'm just going to not find a place until this closes, do what I need to do for that interim period, and then get a place.
Okay. One of the things I'm not sure you probably thought about this, but
Mm-hmm.
just in case if the closing happens, you don't get a place,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to go somewhere. Have you ever thought about maybe renting a storage locker for like a month and just putting your stuff in there, like a seven, like I forgot what they're called, but like the $7 storage locker. You put your stuff there. You cancel out the first month because you already moved into your other place.
That is the contingency plan.
Okay. You're
No,
like
or
I'm living in my car.
no, that's another contingency plan. Like there are other contingency plans. Like when I use the term homeless, although technically sleeping in your car is homeless, but like obviously it could be taken to an extreme. But the moral of the story is like like I was telling Josh before we even started our podcast. Just a little heads up for those that may be listening, might go on a week or 2 or 3 hiatus because I won't probably have the means of doing so. That's the other huge downfall too. So, needless to say, and I hope I don't kick myself in the ass by saying this. I don't think it would be too hard for me to find a place. I just want to know for a fact that this place is going to close and I don't fuck myself early and end up with 2 payments that I don't need to have.
No, that'd be the worst outcome is paying two.
That would be the worst outcome. And that's what I just can't need happen. So
I
it's
think your
like,
move is smart.
yeah, so it's just like as much as I wanted things to work fluidly where it's like, hey, hypothetically, I got keys to a new place right now, right? I could start moving all my shit now. That would have been the best case scenario, right? But because of the uncertainty of knowing whether, like, and I'm not disparaging my realtor, because I mean it's all reality. Like, God forbid, the guy that's or girl that's actually buying my place or is currently going through the process of, hypothetically, what if they lose their job this week? Then they can't buy it anymore, and I enter a lease. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. Like, I get it. It's the real world. So I think it's just best for me to let this place close, then balls to the wall, find a place, be like, here's 2 months rent, give me your damn keys,
Yeah.
and be done and over with it. So
Yeah, I'm not. Obviously, this is just my opinion, but I don't think you finding a place is gonna be an issue. It's just the issue is you finding a place you like.
no, 200%. And to that point, like I found, because like I said yesterday, the place that I really liked, I scouted myself, not my realtor, not to like throw shade, but like, and after that place, we went and looked at 5 other places, and out of those 5, there was only 2 where I was like, yeah, I could see myself here. And I think that kind of pissed him off because like he was doing the hard work and trying to find the places, but it's like I felt that vibe, although he wouldn't say it or admit it, but like in my head, I'm like, well, like, sorry, to your point, I want to live somewhere that I'm gonna fucking want to live. So, oops. Um, but yeah, no, that's a valid point. Valid point.
So if let's say I know you mentioned this before, and obviously you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but so this within this week is supposed to be your closing date. If you
Hmm.
don't get it, if it doesn't go through, you said you might potentially not put it back on the market. You might just stay there, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you would know. So if it's not this week, you would know for sure that you might stay there or you might not.
Yeah, so I'm doing like obviously you can't see behind me. Although I was gonna pack up this which sword, I can't even put my finger there. This sword, not the Frostmourne. I was gonna pack that up. I got a lot of my shit packed up already. Like I started the process of, and I'm gonna continue it tonight. I probably won't even stream well. Um, like I'm not ready, but I'm getting ready. So
Mm.
to that point, like that's where I would get pissed off. Although some of it's out of my control, but it's like if this doesn't go through, well, shit. Now I packed up my whole house. I'm actually even getting rid of stuff. And if it doesn't close, like what the fuck? Like
Well, think
this
of
is
this as like a
this
good
is
time to
just
reorganize everything and buy more things.
that's true, and that's fine. Like the stuff I'm getting rid of with reason because I was ready to move on from it. Not like I'm doing it for other reasons. Like like a couch, for example. I want a new couch anyway at some point, so get rid of the couch. Um, but yes, this is the whole stress of selling a place, which didn't think it was going to be this stressful, but it is, and that's okay because when it's all said and done, I will be a happy camper. This is only for the better. This is only really step one for good things to come in the future. So,
Now, I'm not gonna jinx you, but
oh,
I've had somebody, a friend, that has settled on a closing date when he moved into his house, but the person that was there before didn't move out. So it took 3 months for them to evict the guy from that place until until he can move in.
but that wouldn't be my case because I'm the seller in this case, so I will be out.
No, but I'm talking about like if you move in or if you want to go to the
Oh,
next place and the guy doesn't leave, it takes it. Well, obviously
well,
3 months it usually is for like the sheriff to come in, get them out, and then the
yeah,
court process after that. But that wouldn't be on you.
yeah, because there's legalities with that. Well, if I may say this, and I don't know if it's just an extreme string of luck or if maybe the way I'm searching is the right way. But anyways, every apartment that I have seen, and I've seen now a total of like 9, I think. Um, every single one of them was already
Gone.
without a tenant. Was yeah, they're clear, they're cleaned out, clear. I guess you could say move-in ready. So yeah, that hasn't been an issue, and I think that is the way it's supposed to be
That's a
because
bit, yeah.
they shouldn't be putting it on the market if it's not ready to move in.
I agree.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean it's still another valid point. But I don't think I would put myself in that position anyway. Like I would only sign a lease that's saying, "Hey, I can get the keys right now and move in,"
So
or within a week, whatever.
before we move on from this,
Sure.
how are you feeling on the soul closing thing? Are you feeling more positive, like it is gonna go through, or are you feeling like, or is it 50-50 right
I
now?
no, I do feel positive. I truly do feel positive. The part that um irks me is that it's still not 100%. There's no guarantee, right? I feel positive, like it's going to happen. It's just that without that guarantee, because the reality is, I have to sign it. The buyer has to sign it. Done. Um, the fact that that needs to happen first before I put myself at risk. Uh, I'm not doing that shit. Everything I've built
Your
in my
empire.
life, my empire. I am not taking that risk of signing anything without this happening because that fuck me over big time.
No, I agree. But that's good. If you feel positive about this, that this is actually gonna go through, I hope obviously this is what you want. I hope that's what you get. You know, so you can move on to things that you actually want to do.
Yeah, no, I think up until this point, I think I was trying to be proactive as much as possible, and like I said, in a perfect world, I would have another place ready to move into right now, but I don't. And that's the reality of the situation. So now we go through slightly other extreme measures, and that's okay.
I was
But
gonna make
one
the
thing,
joke that when you meet your the person taking your house, I'm the one that's there. I'm like, what's up?
like, you bastard! Why didn't you tell me? You lied to me. You lied to me. But yeah, so that's the whole situation. Hopefully, that wasn't a long story, but
I mean, even if it was long, this is a very important thing, and I know I will be there watching, and hopefully you will get it. If not, we'll obviously come up with things. But yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody else feels the same way that hopefully everything works out the way you want it.
yeah, like I said, it's there's definitely a learning curve. I guess what I learned is that this whole thing about closing, right? It's like it's not over until it's over. It's not
Yeah.
ogre till it's ogre. Um, for those that know that reference, you sick fucks. Um, but
Shrek is
but yeah,
like,
I almost wish it wasn't this way, but I understand it, right? Like both parties could agree on a closing date, and to my own fault, and I'll admit that because I did sell myself on this. I took that as, oh, it's going to happen. But the reality is, it's not going to happen until it's all signed on for. So that's what I learned from this whole ordeal, and that's fine. Has it been a little stressful? 110%. I think you can see all the new acne on my face. But
that happens all the time, and that's not just you, that's everyone.
but yeah, nonetheless, I'm still stoked, and I can't wait. It's like I said, this really is step one to a larger plan. So.
And to adulthood. No, I'm just joking.
And to adulthood.
But moving on to people that aren't smart, is Sony.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So this is
Okay.
pretty much part two of the PlayStation price hike, and I didn't mention this last time because
Mhm.
I feel bad for other countries, but the price hike wasn't in America; it's for every other country: Europe, Australia, and
Correct.
China.
So
And
I didn't read that until after our podcast as well. So as I just went through my whole story, I will say this week I've been definitely under a rock. I'm usually under a rock to begin with, but now I'm under a boulder. So you will have to get me up to speed and educate me on this.
so I was also wrong too on the price spike. I thought it was $60. In places like Europe and Australia, it's risen by $120. So what?
Okay.
So the discless version that was originally like $3.99 or $4.99 in Australia is
Uh-huh.
now like $5.59 or $600.
Now, is that when you say $120, is that the exact conversion it would cost if it was in the US?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So they raised it drastically, and there's a lot of speculation that the reason why these console spikes are happening in those countries is because they're currently being sued for market manipulation, and they're being sued by the European government for one, a monopoly on digital sales, and two, manipulating prices so they get a so they're manipulating prices so where the digital games, they don't go down, they stay the same price, and people have to pay more to get them. And they're being sued for 5 billion euros, which I believe is $5.9 billion in America, because of this. And there's this whole legal process in Europe that's going on for it, and they're trying to see if they can adjust the prices because obviously, like we said, digital games are too expensive. They're cutting out the third person, but apparently Sony takes 30% of digital sales. That's why they're so high.
So basically, they're increasing to get a larger profit.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
So they're being sued for a bad business practice and also market monopoly because in Europe there's not a lot of game stores there. It's
Mm.
either you buy from Sony or you buy from like whatever game store they have there, and
Amazon.
usually Amazon. But usually
Mm.
people buy from Sony, so they basically have the monopoly there, as people would say. So they're like, it's unfair that they can keep these prices extremely high even though it's been years and they should have deteriorated. That's why the European government is currently suing them for that much. And I think them being sued, Sony's response to them is spiking the prices on their consoles so they can make their money back. And not only that, but supposedly they're also taking a huge hit financially because of the Bungie acquisition. They're not getting the money that they expected to get right away from them buying Bungie for a couple. What was it? Is it? I don't know what the price is. I thought it was $1 billion, but I could be wrong on that. But so far, Sony is leaking a lot of money, and they're trying to figure out ways to come back with it.
So here's my immediate thoughts, because as I said in previous podcasts, I like to play devil's advocate. When does the consumer take responsibility?
Well,
and what I mean by that is our voices are always the most powerful, right? And although I agree that the prices should not be that high, and especially on the digital market, there's no and if buts about that. But that goes for every company. But your voice, the mass voices, will be heard if you just don't buy it. End of story. And I said that even with Nintendo, with the way they hold their online marketing, like until it's boycotted, then you'll start seeing results.
Well, to your point, they are voting with their money. That's why Xbox is leading in sales currently, because a lot of people in Europe are fed up with PlayStation. That they've actually started buying Xbox.
And that's another great point, because you also mentioned at the start of this conversation that they're being sued for trying to I guess maybe the keyword there is trying to, but monopolize digital sales. Well, how are they monopolizing if they're not even a monopoly? That's not even that's false information.
I could be wrong, but there's other things that are going on there, because I'm not sure if you know this, but in certain countries, especially the Asian market, they tried to suppress Microsoft where it wasn't sold. That's why PlayStation would dominate the sales in other countries, because it was promoted more. But now, because of Sony, keeping the prices the same and not lowering it, that's why Xbox is coming into play.
Suppress and more promotion are two different things. So which one is it?
Well, in Europe, it's more promotion, but for Asia, it's suppressed.
So in Europe, that's not their fault. They put more money in that market because they wanted to market it more. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, suppressing it in one market, different story. Probably have to learn a little bit more about that. But yeah, that would be wrong entirely.
Yeah, because even in the Asian market, well, obviously we're talking about Europe here with the suing. But even in the Asian markets, if you go to video game stores, they will have Xbox products there, but the employees there will basically say, "Don't buy this. It's garbage. Buy this instead." And they will basically berate you and insult you if you try to play anything else.
I don't really feel like that's nothing new than GameStop shops here in the past. Like, an individual is going to have, just like us, right? We go back and forth.
No, this is a policy that they actually push.
Well, policy is different. Okay, I was waiting for
they actually put signs up where they have to put it on the shelves.
Don't talk about Xbox.
But they basically say, "Don't buy this."
Xbox.
But with this whole Sony price thing, that's why you're seeing Xbox prices or Xbox sales spike up in Europe, because they're tired of Sony's bullshit. And even in the Asian market, which was always dominated by Sony, you're seeing Xbox come up on the rise, because people realize there that Sony has kept people under the thumb enough because of the branding that they weren't going to make a difference. That's why this competition is kind of good that Sony's getting, so they can go back to a more consumer-friendly policy.
Well, that whole idea of them, whether it is pushing policy to say, "Hey, talk about us, not them," that's just another dumb decision that is going to shoot themselves in the foot. I think human nature is, you tell somebody you don't want this, you don't need this, you can't have this. Now I want this.
Yeah.
So that to me is just dumb. It's just so stupid.
But then, according to what I put the article in Discord. Unfortunately, I didn't write it down on my thing because I was busy. But adding on to this market manipulation, I could be incorrect because, like I said, I'm just going off memory. But according to a lot of the sales that happened, even in Australia, they would give you a set price on the PlayStation market, and you would buy it thinking you're buying it for that price. But when you
Mm-hmm.
get the receipt, they add on like $10 to $20. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
they're saying the price value didn't match what they were getting.
Mm.
And I think that's also where the sale malpractice is coming from. Is that
What, how would that be Sony's fault? Wouldn't that be more the store's fault?
no, well, this is digital.
Oh, digital. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, like like I said, I could be wrong, but from
Yeah.
what I remember reading is that let's say you buy a game thinking it's for $20, and then
Mm-hmm.
you check your receipt and the price that they take out, it's actually $30.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like they also mislabeled a lot of their prices too.
Oh yeah. No, that's horrible practice right there. I mean, that's not even practice. That's just flat out fraud. I mean,
So
that's
this is
exactly what
memory.
that
If
is.
anybody wants to correct me, go ahead. But from my memory, that's what I remember reading from. Obviously, it's I'm not gonna say it's a reliable article, but
Yeah.
IGN
Yeah.
and there's also the other places that
Yeah.
publish this.
And that's the other thing, right? Is like all these articles, like I think that's the hardest thing about gaming news is like gaming news is really grown and strived from rumors, right? Like it's always
Yeah.
been a rumor type of world. Gaming is so like it's really hard to find concrete and truthful information unless like it does end up on a hypothetically New York Post or something
Well,
or Wall Street Journal or
this is why I'm
something of that
covering it
magnitude.
because it was on CNN, it was on
Mm-hmm,
Time, it was on
mm-hmm,
Kotaku and IGN. I pulled up the
mm-hmm,
IGN article and read that,
mm-hmm.
but so far from Kotaku and CNN, they all matched.
Yeah, no, and that's how it's. I would think you read multiple sources and pick up the common denominators there, and
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting that IGN was speaking bad about Sony because they've been known to get paid by Sony to write very high reviews for their games. So I
mm-hmm.
was like, if they're talking bad about Sony, there must be an issue.
That last check didn't clear.
But yeah, when I seen this, I was like, it makes a lot of sense for their prices for the console spiking, especially in those countries that they're being sued. It's almost like a retaliation, like, oh, you want to go
Yeah.
against us? Well, we're gonna hit you in another place.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I do
But what
feel
about
bad.
but what about Canada then?
Well, I don't know. This is just like I said, America so far is good because our
No, well, I mean, because you brought up like Asia and Europe, but Canada has a price hike too. So why is Canada getting retaliation?
I can't speak on that, but like
Really?
obvious, I don't know. But
What's this on the bouquet?
the reason why we don't have it in America is because as much as sometimes we don't like when our government interferes, our government does talk to these businesses and make sure it's a regulated price. As much as some people don't want to agree, so I think
Mm-hmm,
that's why we weren't affected here in America compared to those other countries because their governments didn't put their noses in there
mm-hmm.
until now.
Yeah. So well, it's very interesting. We'll see how obviously the saga keeps on evolving. Of course, they will never admit that those were the reasons, right? So even if they were, we'll probably never know, and it kind of continues to be pure speculation. But um, I mean, up until last week, still thought that it was their way to recoup, supply chain issues and the costs associated with that. But if that's not the case no longer, then that is very very shitty.
Now
Still not gonna stop me from buying one though.
this is a rumor. I can't say it's true because it's what's
Uh-huh.
been spreading around articles. Like I said, there's no concrete information.
Uh-huh.
But supposedly there's another pending lawsuit in multiple countries about their controllers being what do they call it? Not constructed properly, where it's like a $70 controller, but because of its making, it's very fragile. Oftentimes you get analog drifts and the battery life doesn't match what's marketed.
Same thing happened with the Joy Cons. Nintendo was fine, so I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Well,
I think they're trying to kick them while they're down, is what's happening.
I don't. Well, I have the PlayStation controller, and I'm very careful with my controllers. But I dropped it once,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
shell cracked. I've legit accidentally flung my Xbox controller across the room, and
Not,
no cracks at all, no
not,
problems.
not to fall off the rails here, but like nowadays, a lot of things are made to break. Like that should be investigated throughout a lot of shit. Like
I will agree. There's a
Furnaces,
lot of companies that do that.
air conditioners, your cell phones. Your cell phones are made to break in a different way because they push software that makes it no longer operate and function the way it did when it was brand new.
Apple.
Everything. I mean, it's honestly all the companies. Let's face it.
I would agree with you, but in the gaming industry,
Let me just finish this thought. The only thing that it hasn't happened to, thankfully, is cars.
well, some cars. Ford was called out
Most
for it
cars.
big time, but like that's why people went to Hondas, Toyotas because they're built to last.
Yeah. And I have a Hyundai. Exactly.
So, but going back to like the production and the quality of it, Xbox and Switch aren't made that way though. Like even though the Joy-Con drift
to make it right, but like just throwing it out there.
like the Joy-Cons, even though they're too small for me, and yes, they do have the analog drift, but that's because of a chip issue for it being so small. But the durability of it is strong because it's also meant for kids. And Xbox controllers are basically mini tanks because you could. If you get the custom ones, they're probably fragile. I've never tested it or the Elite controller, but the stock ones, like I said, I've accidentally flung my controller across the room, hit the wall, hit the floor, nothing wrong with it, and it's been working for 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, saying all that, I didn't mean to make it sound like it was right or wrong. It definitely should be. It is wrong. If that is the case, if they're found guilty within that, and there's proof, then fuck them. But I'm just saying, to me, a lot of things nowadays seems like they're made to break, and that should be an investigation throughout.
Oh, 100%. That's bad practice. Like Apple, when they did that, when we found out that they were purposely pushing updates to make your phone not work to make you get the new thing, dude, I was calling them out too. Like, even though I have an Apple iPhone, it's really shitty practice.
It is. It's not right. Like if they should be more, companies should be more, show more pride if someone's using an old product and it's still working fantastic. Now, if going to the other side of the table really quickly, like from a company standpoint though, to maintain old software and troubleshoot it with new stuff as quickly as technology moves, I'm not in that realm, so I don't understand how hard it is to do that and maintain that. And maybe at some point it has to be a necessary evil. Maybe it is at some point, right? You reach that threshold. But I don't think it happened that fast. No way in hell should it happen, maybe like 2 years? 3 max?
There's also been arguments saying that, because people are pushing production just for the sake of production, not for enhancement. People are saying that, like, obviously different thing here, but like, especially for phones, people are saying you don't need to produce new generation phones every single year. Give it like a 2 to 3 year gap. Just produce the iPhone 12 for 3 years, and then next thing you know, you got the iPhone 13 with all these enhanced features that most people would probably get because it's actually worth it. Like for me, I had an iPhone 6 before I had the iPhone 12 Max. And I'm not going to get a new iPhone until the iPhone 14 because it usually makes a leap. And I'm also part of the Pay Next program where I turn this in, get the other one for basically 60% off. But like, I would never go yearly for new phones like that. It's just
that's never been my practice either. Like I think I average a new phone maybe every 4 years. Give or take. So yeah, but to each their own. Like I'm not really, I don't disparage anybody that is in those lines every year or even twice a year. If that's their thing, that's their thing. It's not my thing.
But going back to Sony, like, as much as I've been talking a lot of crap about them, I do play a lot of PlayStation. Like if you talk about my streams, I've been playing more PlayStation than Xbox. So I don't want them to fail, but I think this might be one of those learning points for them that they have to do better, because I've always been, obviously, for the company needs to make their money for them to make more things, but I'm also for balance where consumers need to be thought into things. And right now Sony's been all about them, not consumers, and I think this is like the kick in the pants that they need to like reshape themselves and also maybe look at their marketing thing, because they've been bleeding money from their production of consoles, now this lawsuit, PlayStation Plus revamp, and now the acquisition of Bungie. I think they just need to refocus what they really spend their money on and what's a priority.
Yeah. Um, We'll see. I mean, you've been more. You've still been more of a customer to them than I have because I still don't even own a PS5 and haven't touched my 4 in a while. But
The blame is definitely Bungie because obviously I'm a huge Destiny fan, and obviously Destiny gets a lot of exclusives with PlayStation. That's why I play on PlayStation more.
mm-hmm.
But I have to call them out when I need to.
Yeah, but going back to the calling out part, like I think like even when you're talking earlier, like I know a lot of these are contract driven, but like going back to like even Square Enix because Square Enix has a huge you know following and whatnot. Like I think until more larger name companies turn away from them, I don't see anything. I don't see really much damage being done. If I'm being honest, I think it's
I
like
feel like reputation
like
damage is going to be there.
yeah, but how long is that gonna like? How is it really gonna cripple them? Like, I just don't
It
like. I
won't
did say
cripple
I
them, but
did
it would hurt them.
I did say earlier like the customers have a lot of voice, and that still stands true. But the customer's voice will take a lot longer to actually affect them than the developers and the companies that work more in tandem with them that have the larger, or dare I say largest voice that could, as they say in the industry, move the needle.
Yeah,
Um,
but
so
see, the thing is, we've seen with multiple places where if you hear the public outcry, people
mhm,
start, distancing themselves from people. Like for example, there's rumors going around that Sony wants to acquire FromSoft, which basically makes the Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Elden Ring games and make
mhm,
them their publisher. And
mhm,
there's another publisher too. I can't remember their name, so I'm not gonna say it. But I think Sony probably would have acquired him if it wasn't for all these things going on right now.
mhm,
And a lot of people are going over to Xbox because of this. And you know, I mean, I don't want to give Xbox too much credit because like it seems like we've had every generation a very weird like swing back and forth. Like
mhm,
during the PS2 days, they were dominating. Xbox was on, had to fight its way through the mud to get up, and then 360 happened. Microsoft was on top for that whole entire generation. PS3 took a lot of hits because of their pricing issues, their network insecurities always being down, and then PS4 they took over, and then Xbox was down for their marketing policies, like always being online, which ended up turning out to be right because that's what
mhm,
everything turned into.
mhm,
But I think it's just like every generation. It's like this one Sony's to lose because they thought too high of themselves, and Xbox to win. And the next generation, it might be Xbox's to lose because they think too high of themselves, and Sony's to win.
mhm.
So I think it's
And,
just one of those pendulum swings right now.
and even with that pendulum swing and them two going back and forth,
Touching
who's on
tips,
top? Who's on top?
the money.
Nintendo. That's right.
Nintendo is, what? I'm not gonna get into it.
Alrighty. So,
But yeah, I hope that Sony gets their stuff together. I hope that whatever happens with this lawsuit, you know they need to one. I think this lawsuit might actually be good for everyone, including Xbox, because digital sales do need to go down. And Xbox, if Sony gets sued, Xbox could be next on the chopping block with their digital sales.
yeah, they probably won't be next to be sued, but they'll see the writing on the wall if they're smart and be like, oh well, actually, if they were smarter, they would lower them now and be like, ha ha, look at
Well,
us.
that's the funny thing is that they've been having sales nonstop since this has been happening. Like it's like
Yeah.
summer sale, achievement sale, whatever, and it's just like super low prices, like $7 and $10.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
like,
And like I said, if they were smart, that is exactly what they should be doing. Like next week, like just across the board. Hey guys, look what we're gonna do. From now on, you'll never pay a cent more than this price for a digital video game. Just saying, if they were smart, get ahead. Because optically, no one's gonna research that. No one's gonna care. They're just gonna think like, oh, they did it first. Sony's the copycat. But yet Sony's the one that's getting pummeled in the corner, beaten and bloodied and battered and yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the way it is.
yeah. But we'll see how this goes. This might be an overall win for consumers, or it could be one of the downfalls for a company that will only have one company left, and they will just be the monopoly on everything.
No, no. What did I just tell you?
You never know. Things have happened that have surprised us. Like Sega was on top for a while, and then they killed themselves.
I hate to say it, but I never saw Sega as legitimate competition.
Well, you might not have seen that, and obviously, a betting person would have bet on Nintendo, but Sega did a lot of very what people thought were progressive at the time, but turned out to be really stupid moves.
I don't know. That's a whole conversation for another day. The only Sega product I ever owned was just their Game Gear. Never owned a Genesis, never owned a Saturn, Dreamcast, whatever. Never owned any of them.
I will say
So,
Sega had an idea that I thought, well, we've pretty much seen is that. Do you know what laserdiscs are?
yeah, I remember DVD laser discs.
So they wanted to go the laserdisc route, which is basically the early adoption of Blu-ray because it held more data and the decoding process was much faster, making it more clear.
Yeah,
And
it was HD before HD, basically.
yeah, and like they were ahead of their time, and then obviously Sony came up with Blu-ray. Obviously, the competition between HD DVD and Blu-ray, but Blu-ray won. But they were ahead of their time, and it took 10 years for HD to fully be adopted into systems.
Well, hold on. Your example there was timing was really off. Laserdisc was like I would have to look up exact dates, but I believe Laserdisc was way
Oh,
before Blu-ray HD DVD.
yeah.
That was
Well,
like
I'm saying when
I remember the big because we well not me personally, but one of my uncles at the time did own a Laserdisc player, and I remember I think it was Terminator 2 being like the highlight movie of the time to get on Laserdisc.
yeah, it was like during the 80s, and they did it for music too.
No, it wasn't in the 80s. It was in the
You sure?
90s.
Oh, it was
Yeah, I'm pretty
90s.
sure about that. Like I said, we probably have to look it up, but I'm almost certain it was in the 90s. And they were big like vinyls, and they're multi-sided. So you'd be watching the movie, and it would stop, flip your disc, pull it out, flip it, put it back in. I remember it. I remember it.
But they
But
died off in the early 2000s, and it didn't really get adopted until like 2009 or 10.
see, now
So
that I
that's a
don't
10.
know.
That's a 10-year gap.
I never followed it. I just thought it just really became a dead medium.
Well, it did, but that's because I think it was. I mean, one, the devices weren't selling properly because VHS basically owned the market for just the name itself. But Laserdisc was ahead of its time, and it should have won over VHS.
Actually, yeah, because Laserdisc was even before regular DVDs.
Yeah, it was during the time of VHS.
Yeah, so like, well, not only that though, but okay, ahead of time, you're 110% correct. Yes, it was ahead of it was way ahead of its time. But I think the other issue there was like, yes, the quality was really good and whatnot, but like, you didn't have comparable TVs in that time frame to coincide with that technology.
Yeah,
That was a huge thing. Plus, obviously, it was more expensive. Just like even Australian Blu-ray was more expensive, but at the time we knew that was the future. We just didn't know if it was DVD. Or, I'm sorry, we didn't know if it was Blu-ray or HD DVD. But like I said, Disney is the one that made the contract with Blu-ray, and I think that was what sealed the deal.
well, let's also be honest. Blu-ray
That's my
sounds
opinion.
much better than HD DVD.
True.
I think it's.
True.
I think the naming
So-
also helped them.
I mean, maybe. I mean, once again, I also think under the umbrella of Sony, and Sony having a huge entertainment history outside of gaming, just huge entertainment history, I think also helped a lot as well. But also, too, let me ask you this, because I don't think this is like ahead of its time. It's in time, but like I don't think it's being as successful either. But 4K DVDs and whatnot, and HD 4K, what's going on with that type of market?
I can't speak too much of it. I support it because I actually notice the difference, but I also have all the equipment for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also a fidelity freak. So I think a lot of people are more like you, where Blu-ray is enough to satisfy their needs, and they don't need to go any higher.
Well, I don't know. I mean, once again, this might be a topic for another day. But like, when I watch something that is like 4K, like it's almost like they're in the room with you. I don't like that.
Well, okay.
It looks amazing and everything. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't like to view it like that. Now,
Well,
for gaming, fantastic.
See, that's not 4K though. That's your sharpness. your sharpness setting is too high, give it that pop out effect. Lower
Mm-hmm.
your sharpness down, and you won't get that feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's been an issue since like 2007 with the HD TVs. People, you would go to Best Buy, whatever, and it
Mm-hmm.
looks like they're just popping out at you. That's because the sharpness was too high. But like I
Mm.
have my 4K, you watch it in my room, you'd be like, oh, it's just visually better, but it doesn't give you that pop out, motion blur effect.
Is that an invitation?
No, I'm not saying. No, I'm.
I want that pop out effect, Josh.
But yeah, that whole thing that you say, it feels like they're in your room. That's
Mhm.
that's just pure sharpness, nothing to
But,
do
but
with 4K.
but also there's people that prefer that though.
Oh, there
Is what I'm
100%
getting
is.
at.
People
Yeah,
love to
is
watch
what I'm
live
getting at.
sports in that way.
Yeah, that's another good avenue actually. Sports, it looks fantastic with as well. Sports and video gaming, I think, would probably be those two entities.
I don't like it in video games, but I do know people
Really?
that do
Hmm.
like sharpness in their video game.
I like it in video games, but yeah, sports. That's another great example. Sports, it looks fantastic, fantastic.
Oops, I didn't mean to drop that. But dude, I have loads of 4K movies.
Hmm.
But
Ooh,
then this is a fantastic movie right here.
I would like to experience that one. That one seems like
If you want, you could borrow it. It's also
well,
Blu-ray too.
I don't have that technology.
No, it's also Blu-ray too. I
Oh,
have.
I've seen it on like regular. I'm just talking about it in 4K or whatever you want to talk about it.
Oh.
That would be a cool experience.
Yeah, the one thing I love about these 4K movies is that they come with 4K DVD, their 4K Blu-ray, whatever, their normal Blu-ray, and the digital code.
They come with that standard and everything underneath it. Yeah.
I think that's why I buy 4K, is just because it comes with everything. It's cheap.
I have my Warcraft movie in 4K, which I haven't viewed yet.
Dude, I still need to buy. I have the Warcraft movie digitally on Movies Anywhere, but I would love to get like the physical collector's edition.
Oh, well, I was gonna say if you want to watch it in 4K, I have it and you could borrow it. But,
Oh, I have it in 4K digital as well.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
But I also still do buy Blu-rays. Like obviously, I got my Harry Potter thing, which I'd love to get the 4K, but I'm not spending $120 on it. So if it ever goes $60, I'll buy the whole collection again. And then same thing with Lord of the Rings 4K. Obviously, the one I was looking at is the collector's edition. But if I had $200 laying around, I'd buy the collector's edition with all the Hobbit movies, all the Lord of the Rings, and 31 extra discs for like special features, special effects.
31 extra discs. Jesus.
Well, they go really in depth. Like they go behind the scenes, like how they constructed a lot of things, how the visuals work, the CG, and all that stuff. Like they really go in depth, and I think they have like a narrative version with what's his name, Tolkien, whatever his name is.
That guy's been dead like thousands of years.
Well, they had like the early version when he made The Hobbit. They have like a version of him talking over it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. From what I heard, like I said, I don't have it. It's $200, but if I had the money, I would buy it. But he basically talks about his inspiration from a long time ago. When The Hobbit was made. What was it? The 60s, 50s?
I gotta say something that's off topic, but it's driving me nuts. Your pencil or color pencil thing behind you, your container.
Yeah.
If I'm not looking at it straight on and I'm just using my peripherals, I swear to God to you, it looks like to me like an old school 8-bit Scorpion like this, like celebrating victory. And it's driving me batshit crazy. Like, my imagination's weird, I understand, but that's what I'm seeing every time I look at
I can see it too, though. When I'm looking at it from this view, I can see it too. The two hands are up in the sky.
Yeah, like, don't speak. It's like, put it away, Josh, put it away.
I'm not going to. It's going to stay there. I actually moved it there because I have games right here that I'm organizing because I'm buying a shelf. I had a shelf in my closet, but it doesn't fit all the games, so I'm buying like a bigger media shelf so I could store all my movies and games because I'm a collection freak for physical media.
No, I love my physical medium too. I mean, I understand the digital market. I understand the need, and those that don't want to be, dare I say, cluttered. That's cool. Not that I prefer. I just still like some of my stuff in a physical medium. So
I prefer a lot of things digital because of the convenience of no clutter. But the reason why I've been buying more physical is because physical often has been cheaper. Like, for example,
interesting.
This right here.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah, it's super weird. Like this right
Isn't it just like
here,
so ass backwards?
I bought this 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
$20.
Mm-hmm.
Digital, even now, is like $60.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy.
Yeah, and I never understood that. Like, same thing with this, The Revenant. You go on to like digital media, it's like anywhere from $7.99 to potentially $19.99, depending on which version you get. Bought this for $5. Of course, I bought it
and,
on a sale, but like
and
all of them are going for like $70.99 minimum.
and riddle me this, because I don't own not one movie digitally. Is it much like purchasing a song from iTunes where it's like you buy it, you download it, and then they only let you do it 5 more times?
No, if you buy it, you get to watch as many times as you want. It's
No, no, no.
basically like a
I'm not.
library. What were we talking about?
So it's on the cloud then, kind of, or it's on a server.
Yeah, so if you don't have it online, you can't watch it.
Okay, that's fine. That makes sense.
But if
No,
you're
because like
online, you could always watch it no matter what.
because like with like Apple Music or iTunes, like if you buy a song or an album, you download it, and then and maybe this has changed. I don't know, but I remember like if you buy a new computer or if you buy a new device, you have to re-download it onto that device. So they only give you like a maximum 5 times to download that song or album.
Well, because technology has changed and product IDs can transfer over, all you have to do is just sign in with your email address or whatever, and just it's just automatically there. There's not even downloading anymore. It's just right there, just
So
pretty much
so it
stream.
has evolved to like an account cloud now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And I do know that there's some services like Amazon, maybe Amazon. I'd never bought from Amazon, but I do know that there's certain digital places where you can actually download to watch offline. I buy from Xbox and Movies Anywhere. They don't have that. It's just all streaming
Hmm,
directly to you.
gotcha.
But yeah.
Cool. That's good to know.
So I guess we can move on to topic number 2, which is still related to
Oh.
stories. What were you gonna say?
No, nothing. I was clearing my throat.
Oh, so I'm not a WWE fan. The last time I was really into WWE was like from 2004 to 2007 or 8 when John Cena, Bobby Lashley, Batista, and all that stuff were there.
Mhm.
But recently, Vince McMahon, if I read correctly, he's retiring. He's giving it to his daughter and Triple H to run WWE. If that is correct, could be wrong. But there's a lot of happiness for this, but also a lot of fear. The happiness is that potentially with him being retired, there could be more multi wrestling groups now, like WWE meets TNA and AEW as like a group combination for certain events. But there's also a fear that's been going around because I've seen a lot of montages that the storytelling era of WWE might be over with Vince McMahon because he would overhype a lot of things and he would also do a lot of controversial things to generate a story and push it forward.
Um. So I think I'm gonna take everything you said and kind of just dissect it. So brief history. Yes, Vince is. I guess you could say officially retired. Although some people may be conspiracy theorists and say he probably still has his hand on it behind the scenes somewhere, somehow. I want to believe that's not the case. He was, I would say, forced into retirement because of the allegations that were brought against him for paying hush money to people he had relations with in the past, which is not
I
entirely
would,
surprising to me.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Um, so honestly, I truly think if that didn't come out and that didn't happen, he would still be working today. I believe that man would work until he dies. I mean,
How
he
old is he? Like 80?
just turned 77.
77?
Um, so yeah, I firmly believe that man would be working till his deathbed. But so with that said, yes, his daughter now is the co-CEO with another individual named something Khan.
Oh, it's
Can't
not
think of his
Triple
first
H?
name. No, Triple H is the head of um, creative control or something, or president of pretty much
Storytelling?
like talents, something like
Oh,
that, talent
talents.
operation or something. And I think Shawn Michaels is the assistant.
That would be
So
awesome because I was a huge fan of D Generation X.
yeah, except I mean, not to say you may never see that again, but I don't think you will. I think they really are in roles in which they're not going to be used as characters on TV anymore. Especially Triple H because he actually had his own health scare himself.
No, what I'm
Um,
saying is I'd like to see them develop talent that equals D Generation X.
oh, okay, I'm following you. In today's society, I don't think that's going to happen. In my humble opinion, but okay, so that's point one I want to make. So you said happy because seeing wrestling again and whatnot, and I believe that's true. I think Triple H does have a great eye for talent. Vince Vince did fantastic. He did phenomenal. I mean, he took his father's company, which was a local back in the shit 60s, 70s, and beyond. Wrestling was more of a local sport, if I still may call it a sport.
What was
I
WWE
still
called
think
before WWF? There was like a third name before all that.
I'm sure there was, to your point, and even the wrestling buff like me, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Um, but nonetheless, like even way back then, WWF, to your point, was kind of still somewhat of a territorial company. But
Mhm.
Vince really was the one that didn't not only took it to a national level, but very quickly turned it into a global phenomenon.
Not only that, he
Uh,
raised superstars. Like obviously, you see John Cena in a lot of movies, Batista, Andre the Giant for whatever movies he was in,
the Rock,
The Rock,
the Rock was probably the first.
and then
I
you
mean,
also have.
Hogan was in a few movies, but Hogan didn't
You don't make
come
fun
out.
of Three Ninjas, okay?
He didn't do what The Rock did. I mean, The Rock's
No.
first couple roles sucked. I mean, I think maybe even he would admit that.
Wait, which
Um,
ones? Like Doom, Walking Without a.
Scorpion King. I think
Oh, dude,
Scorpion
I
King
love
was.
Scorpion
I'm
King.
not saying it like was horrible, but like I'm just saying like dude, you could watch Scorpion King or so I can't think of any other of his early movies that into what he does now. Like he's evolved, right? Just like
I think he's
anybody,
de
they
well
got that.
going back, but I think The Rock de-evolved.
You think he did evolve,
I
really?
think he was much better in his earlier days with Doom,
Wow.
Scorpion King, the Mummy 2, the Game Plan, the Tooth Fairy. Um, he played
I,
in two movies. I
I
can't remember
I
the name
loved
of them.
Walking Tall. That I think for me was the first one. I was like, damn, he did fucking really good.
That's the one
I
where he
think it was
came back from the military and then there was like a
I think so.
casino
Yeah,
gang. Yeah, that was
yeah.
a fantastic movie.
That was a great one. I really liked that movie. I beg to differ. I think he's gotten better,
And
but
Stomp
yes,
is it Stomp the Yard? He's like a football coach and he's like helping kids that like are kind of
uh,
like
maybe.
but that was a good movie. It was like basically Coach Carter for like football for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've seen that one. I can't remember. But anyways, yeah, he's made it huge. And Cena's now kind of doing that. And now there's rumors that Roman Reigns is probably be the next one to do that. So yeah, Vince has made people. He's made people. Just
Yes.
say it like that. He has made people, and that's why there's so many people that are obviously loyal to him, and forever will be. They'll be Vince apologists for sure. Um,
And I'm
but
seeing a lot of that now. Like I'm seeing like well, I'm not sure memorial, but like a tribute to Vince McMahon on like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Like I'm seeing like hour-long videos of all the highlights. Him versus Donald Trump, him busting one of his hamstrings going on the ring, him doing very controversial stuff like
very
him saying
controversial stuff.
him saying the N word with John Cena and Booker T. And then obviously there's a lot of things Vince McMahon
There's
did to push the buttons and get people hyped around him.
Yeah, but also, let's be honest here. If you think about the exact timestamps that he did those things, even then, you could still say they're controversial. But dare we say it this way, they were also somewhat accepted
I,
because times change. I mean,
I
you know,
wouldn't say
you
they
know,
weren't as. I will say it was more lenient compared to now, because like right now he would have
that's
been
probably a better
canceled,
way of putting it. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it still wasn't acceptable.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like even in those times, you cringed, Or at least I cringed.
Like he would do it with like that
But
stupid like, "Hey, what's up?" And then Booker T is like, "Did this
he
guy
was
really just?"
wearing a freaking do-rag like for months. Like dude push envelope. But anyways, so the problem with Vince though was he was everything. He was judge, jury, and executioner, right? Everything
His way or
had
the
to
highway.
funnel through him, even though he had a crew of story writers and all this stuff. He had final say in everything. So I would say I'm just going to throw a decade long number, 10 years. He kind of got in his own way or was getting in his own way.
And that's where
Um,
AEW started branching up and being promoted more.
yeah, and although AEW's only been here for 3 years, but even before AEW, like I stopped watching the product because I couldn't stomach it anymore, and I would blame Vince for that. I mean, they still made a shit ton of money. Don't get me wrong, because families wanted to take their kids.
Yeah.
So he definitely. There used to be a PG-13 era, but now they're not.
There was the
So,
diva fights that I remember used to loving.
oh yeah, I mean, so did I. I mean, Trish was my gal. So like, so yeah, but storyteller. I mean, yeah, he truly was. I mean, through their great years, he knew his product and he knew his customers and he knew, although you could say he didn't give a shit, he knew how to work you, and not only you but everybody else around it. Or is he
Yeah,
like just a
work his market.
universe? Yes, he knew his craft. I just feel towards the end he lost that. Like how we're saying how things were lenient back then, or and how things have changed. He didn't get with the times, in my opinion. Still making a shit ton of money, because there's also a lot of people that are gonna consume the product however it's given to them,
Mm-hmm.
like the air we breathe. So he always had that hat to hang on, but like there's times like and you could probably find photos online where they weren't filling arenas, like they were doing bad, but still making, they're still a $1 billion entity. And that's the other thing too, talking about producing figures and numbers. For a while they were always producing profits, but a lot of times they were producing profits, they were releasing wrestlers. So if you don't have a large amount of people you have to pay, well, naturally, what the hell do you think is going to happen? Yeah, you're going to have profits. Like it's like if you're not paying enough people, you're going to get more money. Um, with Triple H in charge, like there is a large positive optimism involved, because people, including myself, loved what he did with the NXT brand when he was in charge of it.
NXT.
So
That was the four dudes with like the black and yellow shirt. Is that?
that's how it's kind of started. There was a couple different times they did a storyline like that.
Yeah, they would come
Uh,
out and just gang beat people.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Like I wasn't watching it, but I would see headlines of that on like Twitter and stuff.
yeah. So that timestamp, right? So I don't think Triple H was in charge of it then. I think it still came after. So what Triple H did with NXT was like he really identified the cream of the crop talent of wrestlers that were on the independent scenes, and he was bringing them to NXT. And I don't, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm maybe the first person out there in the world to make this proclamation, but I don't know if Triple H is doing this or thinking this, but I look at wrestling like similarity to like MMA and boxing, where, well, hear me out for a second.
I'm just laughing.
Is where like Vince's vision for WWE, and not that he was wrong, was I need big, tough, mountain-looking men, like not necessarily freaks, but they have to look a certain part, right? Versus Triple H, was bringing people in for their talents, their in-ring ability, and not really concerned about how muscular they looked or how bulky they looked. And I think that is a good approach for wrestling, similar to how MMA and boxing. The biggest draws in MMA and boxing are the featherweights, the lightweights. It may not work. I think Vince was just dead set, like that will not work for wrestling. Absolutely not. Versus, I think Triple H thinks the latter, and I co-sign that theory if that is what he's thinking.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like, obviously, like I said, I'm not in the wrestling category, and I can't speak much of it with a real good opinion. But like, I've seen AEW. I follow your cousin Paco, and he, not no offense to this guy, no offense to Paco, but he doesn't look, built like a wrestler like you would normally do. Well, he's talented, he's agile, and he works a crowd. And like you said, to your point, if Triple H does do that, I think it works because that's how AEW, in my opinion, that's the reason why it's on the rise because it has more diversification with all the people. They got the big guys, they got the small guys. There's acrobatics, kind of like Rey Mysterio, that they're bringing back, and they know how do you say it, bring their viewership to multiple levels. Like when they went to Twitch, I'm not sure if they're still doing it now, but they averaged a couple hundred people there on their early days, and then now they went straight to like the paid version, which I think was the bad idea. And then now they have like their own network, right?
Are we talking AAW or AEW?
AEW.
So AEW is the one that's on TV because AEW is where my cousin wrestled.
Okay, then I'm talking about AEW because they were on Twitch and they turned paid and then they have their own network now.
Yeah, AEW did do Twitch. I guess they're still on there, but yeah, no, they're doing good too. Actually, I think they had a show yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Unfortunately, I haven't really gone and watched them much because, like, when I was following the independent scene, a lot of those wrestlers ended up with NXT for WWE or in WWE now, or they're now in AEW. So, like, I legit seen dozens and dozens of them, like 10 feet, first row, second row, watching them, perform, which is awesome. It's kind of weird. It's like, it's like saying you go to minor league baseball games and you saw them play baseball before they land in the majors. So it's a similar concept, or watch them play college football and now they're in NFL. So yeah, like I kind of have this like weird, long, afar relationship with a lot of these wrestlers, but hell, I even shared a couple beers with them.
Yeah, and take pictures with that one girl.
Let's not talk about that. But anyway, so yeah, like I haven't yet begun to watch WWE under the new reign of Stephanie McMahon and I'm sorry, Triple H, but it may happen. Matter of fact, they're running a pay-per-view tomorrow, or is it tonight? No, it's tomorrow. And then AEW has their pay-per-view Sunday, which I'll be at. So I probably will end up watching them again. It just they really gotta lure me in. But they're I will say this: they're already doing the right things, which is good to see. In my opinion. I mean, it's only my opinion.
I would like to see more crowd work. Like, with AAW, there was a lot. I mean, I'm not sure if you want to call them street fights, but wrestlers would go into the crowd, move chairs, play with people. Obviously, it's a very interactive experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to see WWE go back to those roots because, in the early 2000s, WWE did a lot of street fights where they would go off-ring into the crowds. Obviously, certain parts of the crowds were more manageable, but they did a lot of crowd work with it.
So I agree with that assessment. However, that is heavily influenced by
and there's also probably like legal concerns too with people getting hurt.
Not even the legal concerns, because they fix that with their little disclaimers that they say before the shows, or even print on tickets or whatever they give you. They put disclaimers out, say
all done by professional actors.
No, that they're not liable if someone flies in the crowd and ends up like kicking them in the temple. But no, but the issue why at least in WWE it's not done, and even now AEW is getting a little bit of kickback for the language they use on shows because they say a lot of swear words often. It's it's the channels,
Oh,
I
the
can't think of the
network
name. The networks,
guidelines.
thank you. The networks, yes. It's the networks that influence those decisions.
I'm surprised they haven't taken it more towards a private route. Like obviously, maybe because they're clinging to the past, but there's a lot of services, not just like Netflix, Amazon, whatever. But there's a lot of like internet services where you can still broadcast TV and all that stuff, like apps, and have your own rules. Obviously, you have to categorize that depending on what you do, but there's more lenient ways to broadcast now.
That is true. Um, Once again, there's probably a lot of people in that industry that are getting paid very good money
Yeah,
to do those type of analysis to say, hey, look, if like, I mean, WWE does have their own network, right? I always thought that that's what they were building to. They were gonna get rid of USA, get rid of whatever, do everything through the network. You could still get advertisement revenue through your network, through your streaming service if you owned one. Um, I guess the TV deals, the network deals, are still the lucrative way to go. I mean, look at it. Even I know it's not an apples comparison because wrestling does not really have a dog in a race versus MLB, NFL, NBA. But look at all those major sports; they still do it on networks, right?
yeah, but
They
they get hefty
pay.
deals for it though.
I'm sorry.
They get hefty deals for it though. That's why they haven't transitioned.
They get hefty deals because it's a bidding war, right? You have networks that are saying 1 million, no, we'll give you 2, 3 million, 5 million. That's exactly how it works. Like they want to pay them to come to them
But I will
because
say that ESPN and Red Zone from Comcast are changing the game a little bit because a lot more people are going to the live service compared to national broadcasting. Like a lot of college games are now just on ESPN Plus.
they're. I know MLB did a lot of experimentation this year. Not so well, yeah, no, a little bit NFL too. But anyways, I know MLB this year they actually had a select package of games on Apple TV, exclusive rights to Apple TV and all that stuff. So the streaming companies of the world are trying to dip their toes in that as well. But
It's gonna
I
take a
know there
while.
was, I yes, it probably will take a while. I know there's a lot of complaints. Like, I mean, I don't subscribe to many, if very few, streaming services. So when you do that, now you're not getting the ratings of people watching those games because you have to subscribe to their service. Unless they do it like YouTube,
YouTube is
where
another popular one with they have
I think NBA has a lot of YouTube only games. But the difference with them is you could still watch it for free. Like they'll do the
they'll
breadcrumb
clutter it
thing.
with ads, but you can still watch it.
Well, not only that, but they'll no, there'll be sometimes they'll do it ad free, but they'll be like the breadcrumb ones, like, oh, they have a lineup of 3 games for that evening, but only the first one's free,
Hmm.
right? And you can watch it like you know anywhere on the internet, but it'll have the YouTube logo on it. We'll see how it evolves. I mean, it's very interesting. I guess just the money's not there yet.
Yeah, but
Like,
going back to wrestling,
oh, we're still talking about wrestling.
yeah, well, let's all tie together. But I would like. I know this is probably like a pipe dream, but I could be
Mhm.
wrong. But like, there's a guy. Like I said, my information is very vague.
Yeah,
But I think it was like TNA. It was called like there was a wrestler called Sting on TNA. He
yeah.
basically was like Kane. I would love to
Uh,
see. Well, he would wear like the weird face paint and all that stuff.
mhm,
And I would love to see multi-organization cooperations where they do like these big events, like kind of like a WrestleMania, where it's like maybe
mhm,
once a year they have all their
mhm.
best talents fight each other. It'd be cool. And maybe even like a Royal Rumble with all these like 3 organizations coming in. Top organization wins. They get like bragging rights for the year.
So everything you described right now is definitely a wet dream of mine. But
Because that would bring me back for sure for a little bit.
so Sting, since you brought up Sting, he's actually in AEW right now.
Oh, he switched?
But yeah, but to since I'm obviously more up to date and fluid in this scene, so this year, a few months ago, in thankfully, I could say I was at the show, and I'm glad I was. I might have talked about this on one of our earlier podcasts, actually, but AEW and New Japan Wrestling and they continue to have a working relationship and agreement, and they actually held their first conjoint pay-per-view a couple months ago. And Tony Khan, that's the owner of AEW, he has publicly said, and he was asked, would you be willing to do this with WWE, even when Vince was still there? And he said, yes, he would. So, however, and this literally just came out maybe even today or yesterday, not that there was any negotiations, because I don't think they're on talking terms at all, but since he said the door was open, that has kind of, the waters have been muddied a little bit, because like I said, Triple H is now in his new role, and when he was in charge of NXT, he kind of had his crew, right? He had his wrestlers. He liked that. But then Vince took over, fucked it all up, got rid of a lot of people, pretty much cleaned house. So a lot of those wrestlers ended up signing contracts with AEW. And now that they're kind of in long-term contracts with AEW, some of them in 5-year deals, right now there has been talks of WWE tampering and talking to AEW wrestlers that used to be with them, trying to get them to come back. So that has caused like a rift to the point where I don't know if it's legally happened, but Tony Khan of AEW has said that he would probably send an actual legal tampering order to WWE and sue them.
Interesting.
Yep. So with that said, that has muddied the waters for any type of conjoint company effort. Not to say it still may never happen, but I mean, he has to do it. I mean, like I keep comparing it to the big major sports, but it's just true. If you have a contract, it happens in major sports all the time. If you're signed to a particular franchise, sports franchise, and another team tries to talk to you, that's tampering. They then get penalties assessed against them. They lose draft picks. They lose whatever. Now there's no draft picks in wrestling, but but there's repercussions. And with wrestling, can be legal repercussions. So yeah, that's kind of muddied the waters a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know if Vince would ever have done that. If I'm being honest, I don't think he would. I think. And Triple H also still thinks that they are the mothership. They're still number one. There's no end if buts about that. But I just don't know how big of open mind Triple H and Stephanie will have to do something like that. I just damn well know Vince would have never ever done it.
I can't speak for it because I don't think
Vince would have done it even if the other company said, we'll let all of your talent win every single match. Like, I still think he wouldn't have done it. I would absolutely love to see it. That would be wrestling heaven. And I would have to spend a pretty penny to go to that show, because that would be phenomenal.
I would probably spend money to go there too, because I'd love to see that. But
that would be the hardest ticket ever.
But going on to something that you said that I totally forgot about, but this is gonna sound weird. But because of COVID, a lot of the Asian athletic divisions have skyrocketed, because when baseball was down, the Korean Baseball League rose dramatically, because that's all people could watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the wrestling organization in Japan. They've skyrocketed too because of COVID. But with these joint events, I am curious, because obviously I haven't watched them, but I heard a lot of things that Japan with the wrestling, they're more hardcore with their stunts, and they don't have as many safety regulations compared to over here, where they're willing to take real hard bumps that could potentially cripple people.
True. That's not true with AEW. Is that true with WWE?
No. I'm talking about the Japanese wrestling.
No. I understand what you're saying, but what I'm trying to tell you is the Japanese risks, or what they're allowed to do, doesn't hold any water against to what they do in AEW. Does it hold water against what WWE is limited to do? Yeah, but that too might change with Triple H in charge. Like when Vince was in charge, he legit had a list of moves that were banned, as well as a list of words that were banned that wrestlers could not use in promos, nor could the announcers use when they're doing their commentary. Like Vince McMahon literally banned the word wrestling and wrestler.
Did he really?
Yes, that is a fact.
What was the reason for
Because,
that?
because they're sports entertainers. It was sports entertainment. They were not wrestling and they were not wrestlers. Triple H has changed that already.
That's kind of a weird one.
That's Vince.
Yeah.
That's Vince.
So I guess going back to the original thing is from what I've heard from you, it doesn't seem like the storytelling element has taken a hit at all since Vince's retirement. But I have
No.
seen a lot of people like potentially concerned about this, but it seems like it might have a really bright future going forward.
Yeah, I haven't really read many negative things, so it's kind of fascinating you say that. I guess maybe I have to get out there and read some more stuff. I mean, most of the feedback that's been coming are just nothing but praises, like from everywhere. I mean,
I
you
see that
know,
too, but that's for the gatekeeping reasons.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm saying what I've read is that people are happy that this might open up new avenues, but the negative has only been with the storytelling part, not with anything else.
I think, well, see, once again, I'm not watching the product, right? I think there is concern that the one thing you could always give Vince a good pat on the back about is, like I said, he just knew what was working probably before he even started working that program, right? But then he also had a very bad track record of particular wrestlers.
Had to shine.
They were shining, they were succeeding, and it happened organically. And because it wasn't his idea,
He would shelve them. Like,
pull the
isn't
plug.
that what happened to God? I could be wrong here, but Rey Mysterio almost got shelved because he didn't like the idea of a short person being the main star. Also, there's two people, Rashiki and the Boogeyman, that a lot of people like for their just weirdness, and then they got canned. I'm not sure if that's related to his idea or his vision not matching up with them.
I can't speak on everything on that. The Rey Mysterio one is definitely true because the same thing kind of happened with Daniel Bryan, or now he's Bryan Danielson in AEW, but when he was in WWE, it was Daniel Bryan, and he's a smaller stature guy. I mean, he's probably my height, maybe even an inch or two shorter. But you know, thankfully in that situation, he saw the light, or someone made him see the light, and they actually did put the world title around his waist. So that was good. But there's, and I don't know if you know these wrestlers, but like there's, and me and my buddy that we were at the show Wednesday, we were talking about this exact same topic. But there's like there was a guy named Rusev that was a heel, but then the fans kind of started liking him, and they kind of turned like face with him, and they were always behind him when he came out, and he just said, "Nah, no, no, you like him? No, we're not going to do this anymore." And there's just so many examples of it, and it was just so stupid. It's like you literally lost money.
Yeah, it's like, why shelve a crowd favorite?
Like, I mean, it just whatever. Vince, like hashtag Vince, like that's
Hashtag Vince.
it's just so disheartening. But
That's almost like the next Me Too for wrestling.
yeah, hashtag Vince. Um, so yeah, I mean the I don't think the storytelling stuff, right, in my opinion. But then again, I'm not watching the product week to week. I think the issue may be, and this is the point I was trying to get at, and I kind of fell off the rails. Triple H has a different, like he has his favorites, just like Vince had his favorites. So the favorites that Triple H has, I don't think the WWE universe per se are very knowledgeable on these people. So they're new to them. So they have to kind of adjust. I think it needs to take a little time. Um, But I will say this, like and people will probably disagree with me and probably throw me under a bus for saying this, but one wrestler that Triple H just recently brought back, I think it was just last week. His name is Johnny Gargano, and he's been out since like January or February, and there was talks that he might end up in AEW. Like he is a hot free agent, but since he is one of Triple H's boys, matter of fact, I think the story or the dirt sheets reported that they uh, personally sent Shawn Michaels to go visit him to bring him back. And Gargano loves Shawn Michaels, so that worked. But when he came back and I was watching the video, and I like Gargano, he's another guy I saw wrestle at AEW. Like you know, not know the guy, but I've seen the guy, live and up front, 10 feet away. Fantastic wrestler, definitely one of the best. Smaller stature guy as well, but the crowd reaction for his return, very underwhelming in my opinion. And like I said, I think that's because they didn't really know him. Versus like when he was in NXT, people loved him. The customers for NXT versus WWE are literally different. Like it's just different breed of people.
I definitely remember TNA being more rowdy than anyone else.
I never really got into TNA, but every fan base, loyal as they are, like they have their extremists, right? They have their apologists, they have everything. I just never talk about storytelling. I didn't really think they had great storytelling. Like
I didn't think so either, but when I did watch him for a little bit, the rowdiness is what got me because everybody was so hyped for random things, and they're just so like it was basically like watching a walking mosh pit. Everybody was going at it.
And but if that's what you like, then that's what you like, right?
Yeah.
Like if you like watching somewhat of a train wreck, and enjoy watching that train wreck, like
you would see people in the crowd fight each other. And it was just that's what I like. That's what made me watch it for a little bit, is because I liked watching. I know it's gonna sound dramatic, but I liked watching them fight each other. It was fun.
Yeah.
But I guess to like kind of almost wrap this up is we talked about WWE turning people into superstars, movie stars, and all that stuff. What has been your favorite WWE movie? I know mine. I know my top 3. It's Fighting with the Family. I really like that one. The second one might be 12 Rounds with John Cena. And the third one is... I forgot. I guess it's just top 2 now. But I know Fighting with the Family is definitely number 1 for me.
I haven't seen that one, but I just never cared for Paige. Sorry. I just don't. I
didn't even know who she was until I watched the movie, and then I loved her.
I will probably be crucified for saying this, as a lot of people do when they bring out a negative opinion, but I didn't see why she was marketed the way she, or like, I didn't think the talent level was there. But I'm gonna get crucified for that. But that's I said it. So with that, I don't know, like The Wrestler, and that's the name of the movie. I thought was really good.
Is that with Mickey Rourke?
Yep.
That was a good one too. I think that's my second one. That's the one I forgot.
Yeah, that one was really good, and it had a presence of maybe WWE in it a little bit, but like not a heavy one.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was really good. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones, because there really isn't many. Oh, I think I don't know if you consider this a wrestling movie, but I think I actually told you about this movie. I don't know if you ever watched it, or if I even let you borrow it, but I think it's called Bigger, Stronger, Faster, but it's more about steroids.
I haven't seen it, but I feel like I've watched multiple things about it.
It's a documentary, but it's obviously heavily influenced of wrestling or with wrestling. But they do, go talk about steroids.
Was it centered around the 90s?
Oh yeah, and 80s.
Because I mean,
it's not that it takes place there, but yes.
Because I remember hearing stuff about like Jake the Snake talking about things, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Andre the Giant didn't take anything, I don't remember, but like they were talking about him.
Was just a massive man.
Yeah, but they were talking about even pushing him, which was already massive, to be even more massive.
Mm.
And like I even remember them talking about a lot of the crazy things that they would inject themselves with,
Hmm.
just to like reduce the pain. Like when Jake the Snake got the snake bites and all that stuff, they would put him with I'm gonna say Novocaine. That's not what it's called, but it's like some kind of numbing thing, so he could take the bites easier.
Yeah, that I'm not entirely sure, but I do know back in those eras, drugs was heavily consumed to deal with a lot of pain and painkillers.
And they even talked a lot
Um,
about cutting too.
oh yeah, blading. I mean, that's still
Or
a
is it
thing.
called blading?
Yeah, that's the term blading. Yeah, that's still a thing today. I mean, normally you kind of have an idea a wrestler's going to do it depending on what kind of wrist wrapping they're wearing because they kind of just tuck it in and then they like it's actually a kind of a craft. I don't know how to do it, but it's actually kind of a craft.
I've seen wrestlers blade themselves so badly where just their whole face is like disfigured, like their head
Dude,
and all that stuff.
look up because Ric Flair recently did a match. Yes, Ric Flair recently did a
At
match.
like 80.
Like
Woo!
what was it, like 3 weeks ago? And before his match or before the event, they even shot a promo to
Uh,
market the event, and it involved him getting beat up in the parking lot, and he I think he bladed himself for that, or maybe he just told him to bust him open. I don't know, but either way, that man bled like a fucking pig, man. Like it was actually like the articles that came out afterwards, the guy that was beating him up, his name is Jay Lethal.
mm.
Even he was concerned. They were recording it, and it's not live. They're recording it to edit it later. But he said he even had to stop and check up on him, like, "Are you okay?" And then Flair's just like, "Ah, keep going." And he's like,
I love the face he
"No,
made. Like he
no,
was basically dead.
no, this is not fine. You're not fine." And it's just like fucking Ric Flair, man. That guy. I'm pretty sure he wanted to kill himself in the ring, but like that man's crazy too. But if I may also segue, because normally we're supposed to talk about games, really quick while we wrap this up. AEW is supposed to have a game coming out. I don't think they have an official release date, but I will definitely be picking that up. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there because I haven't played a wrestling game in a long, long time. Like I loved WWE games, especially when the whole creative wrestler thing came out back in the PS1 and PS2 days, maybe even PS3 when they would have like the SmackDown series. It was like SmackDown and then SmackDown Know Your Role and then SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. And I
Shut
absolutely,
Your Mouth, the one where they went to like the parking lot. It was like basically like a 2D. They
oh
could go
yeah,
on top.
yeah,
That was a good one.
yeah. Yeah, I think the whole series had that functionality. But yes, those games I
Oh
adored.
shit.
But then once they started the 2K series games, I felt they looked good. I just did not like the way they played. They became a little too technical for me. I prefer the arcade style for wrestling games. So I think AEW's is going back to that format. So I'm looking forward to it.
Um, I would like to see that too, because like I do, like I said, I played 2004 to 2007 for the games. I love the soundtracks for the WWE games. They had a lot of good music on there. Um,
Oh
but
yeah, for sure.
but the ones I like was definitely Shut Your Mouth, the one where they went to like New York Times Square. They're fighting on the the awnings or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
a lot of creep.
recently, I actually played a wrestling game, which is so shocking to me because I actually really don't like them. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a cartoon version. It's called like WWE All Star or All Star Brawl or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think I've heard
And
of it.
it was like a different version of the wrestling games, and I kind of liked it.
What does it? What I think that was like a little bit more of an arcade style type game.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
characters weren't like full 3D like they usually are. They're more cartoonish.
yeah, yeah. Like they have like really big top frames and then skinny ass legs. Yeah, I think I know
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
yeah, because it was free for PlayStation. That's why I played it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of fun because it's like a 4 player brawl. It's not just like one on one. It's like
Mm-hmm.
more like I said, 4 players, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was enjoyable for what it was. It was a classic brawler game, and I liked it.
Cool.
But when does the AEW one drop?
No official date yet. I mean, they had it. They have it available for pre-order. I think on like the I think THQ and no, is it THQ? THQ and Ukes is working on it,
I wouldn't be
which were
surprised to make all the wrestling games.
yeah, which is that's what's people are looking forward to because they made those old games. So there's kind of like high hopes for it. Yeah, you can reserve it on their websites, and I think even like through GameStop. But knowing me, they haven't announced a collector's edition of some sort, so that's why I haven't reserved it yet. I don't know if there's going to be one. I mean, almost all games these days have some version of some sort of collector's edition, but
yeah. I'm not gonna buy it because, like I said, I'm not really huge into wrestling. If it was anything, it'd be more UFC, but that's for a different story. But I would watch you play, and depending on how it looks when you play, I might borrow it, and then maybe if I like it, I might buy it.
Well, if I'm playing it, I'll probably be playing it pretty heavily, so you probably won't have an opportunity to buy it or borrow it.
Oh, I'll borrow at some point. I don't care if it takes like 7 years.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'll be looking forward to that because, like, you know, so far WWE owns the market for wrestling games, and there's no competition, so it'd be good to see more come up. Because I mean, WWE 2022, from I've heard from other wrestling people, they like the game more because now there's actual realistic counters instead of just beating them up until they fall.
So kind of. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
I was just gonna say I'd like to see more variety. That's it.
Yeah. So speaking of variety and kind of tying it into what you're talking about earlier about seeing companies come together and work together, I think I read or was told that this AEW game may more than likely use wrestlers from other companies in the game, which would be pretty cool.
That'd be really cool, especially if they bring a lot of those Japanese wrestlers in.
Yep.
The game itself would excel everywhere just because of the multinationalism.
So, I think that's what it may be, a lot of presence from like the New Japan Wrestling and stuff. So
I think that'd be a very smart decision to do that.
And maybe even like the TNA Impact too. I don't know, but we'll see when it comes out.
You better not be giving everybody like high hopes just for it to be torn down and it's like 5 players.
I don't know.
But no, that'd be really cool. But I guess going on to the next topic, which is House of Dragons. We could talk about episode 2 because obviously
Argons.
I will also throw in the speculation because I'll throw my information out the window because whatever's happening. But House of Dragons 2, it is I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the update since Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power came out. But from the time of us posting this topic, House of Dragons Episode 2 is the highest or the most watched episode in 2022, outbeating the first episode by 3 or 4 million, and that was like 10 million itself. And it beats out every other show, including Stranger Things. So they're doing very well viewership-wise. And their ratings, they've even gone up more from like 91 to like 94% now for Rotten Tomatoes, which I'm not, I like to base my own reviews. I don't like to go with Rotten Tomatoes, but people do like that. The Rotten Tomatoes score is very high as well. And I think they're doing a great job so far.
Before we truly enter this conversation, spoilers in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I of course liked it. I loved it. I texted you the next day, though. I truly felt that the episode felt much shorter than the first one. I didn't check the run times of either or, but
it was only 10 minutes difference.
10 minutes is a lot of time, though.
Yeah, I guess it is.
10 minutes is a lot of time. It really is.
Because I think this episode was like 54 minutes, and the pilot was like an hour and 9.
Okay, so hour 9. I mean, like I said, the first episode to me felt like it was a 90-minute thing, which it was just glorious. But so it felt short. I will say this: I truly missed the opening sequence. Like I don't understand it yet because at least for the original Game of Thrones, when you saw that opening,
dude, they gave so much away in the opening.
So yes, so the old Game of Thrones, like whatever towns you saw, you knew were going to be in the episode. Versus this one, I don't understand it yet, and maybe you do. I don't know if we really want to do a deep dive on just the opening sequence, but I was watching it like, okay, it's blood, it's going through things, and it's like like unlocking or something, but like I don't know what's going on yet. And maybe that's the first one, and I'm not supposed to, unless you already know or you read something about it.
Well, so I'm going off of what's already, what we've seen in Game of Thrones and what you will see in House of Dragons. So
Mm-hmm.
I could be getting the name wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Harrenhal. It's basically a great castle that's basically where the King's Landing, and we know
Okay.
in Game of Thrones that it was burnt down by dragons. That's where Arya Stark was pretending to be a boy with Tywin Lannister when he was doing his whole organization thing. So we knew that the castle's burnt down. What you see that in the intro for House of Dragons is that it's still up. And obviously, the whole massacre hasn't happened yet, but it's
Mm-hmm.
weird that they're showing it now in season 1 because, from my understanding, story wise, it doesn't take place until like maybe season 3.
Meaning,
Meaning, like, if we're going from like start to finish, the burning of, dude, I want to look this up so I can say it right. Cause I'm horrible with fantasy names. But Harrenhal, if that's what it's called, like I said, I could be wrong about the name. It doesn't take place until like almost to like the halfway point of the show or the story.
gotcha. But what's the significance of that with that and the opening sequence? Though I guess that's what I'm trying to
Well, the reason
connect.
why I'm surprised that they showed is because we're still so early on the story and the time
Mm-hmm.
jump hasn't happened yet. So I thought it was interesting that they showed that place in the intro when realistically it shouldn't be introduced until like season 2 or 3.
Are we talking about the same intro?
Yes.
I'm talking about the intro with the jingle.
Yes, where you see the fire and the castles being erected, and then you see like the great wall of that great iron wall and Dragonstone. Yes, the intro. You see basically like a river of blood flowing through like these like
Oh, that's supposed to be a castle?
well, you'll see them going through like these structures and then flowing down a river, and then you see other houses being erected.
To me, uh, it didn't look like a castle. To me, it looked like more like
It's a wall fortress. It's a giant
yeah,
fortress.
but it looked it looked like it was all inside of one though.
That's part of it.
Okay, okay. Well, I guess we'll wait and see. But nonetheless,
Because they even show a giant wall in the
glad that the
intro.
jingle was back. Is all I'm saying because it wasn't there for the first episode. And I'm like, hey, we didn't get the jingle. What the fuck? but um, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the episode. Obviously, it's just keep setting things up. There was once again some kind of off-putting things, and I don't know. I didn't read a lot of reviews to see how the people reacted, but when you try to set up a 12-year-old girl with like a 60-something-year-old man, that was very awkward.
Well, I told you this in private when we were talking after the GoFest thing, but I told you that they're going to do a lot of things with kids, and I didn't know how they're going to depict it because it's very graphic in the story.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing though. Like
Now,
outside
was
of
right. It's Harrenhal. I'm sorry. I looked at the name. It is Harrenhal.
no problem. I mean, despite obviously it being some level of fantasy, with the medieval type of time frame, I mean, we understand that that type of shit existed. I mean, fortunately, that shit still exists today in some other
Countries
countries, but back then, I mean, it was prominent, right? Or
more
so
accepted.
well, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, when that was happening, I'm like, oh my god, this is just so bad. But they did it well. They did it well. Where
Well, it
even
wasn't creepy.
yeah, the king was still like it wasn't like "Ugh." It was more like even he knew it was wrong, right?
Yeah.
But everybody around him was kind of telling him like eh. But
Yeah,
like
they're like, it's acceptable. And he's like, I don't want to.
yeah, yeah, no, thank you. So they still they did it okay, but like it makes me wonder because you know a lot more than I do. How much more creepier things could get later. So 12 is, I guess 12 is not okay, but 15 is. I think we learned that in the last episode.
In the show. In the show.
In the show.
So, with engagement wise and relations wise, I think that's as far as they're going to go. But brutality wise, it gets pretty bad.
Oh yeah. Even I know certain things already, based on just regular shit that HBO have has released.
Yeah, and that's what is gonna make me like. I'm trying to like figure out how they're gonna depict the brutality with how certain children are gonna be treated, and I feel like they really have to. Like I said, it might be like flash sequences where you don't see the whole thing because
But they'll get the point across.
yeah, but look at the point across because
Mhm.
the way the story was told for some of these kids, it's like you can't show that. It's just too graphic.
I mean, I know this isn't really a great comparison, but I mean, look at even in regular Game of Thrones and how they what they did with Sansa.
Hmm.
I mean, I, would you say that pushed the envelope? I mean,
I would say well, I've seen a lot of shows and I've seen people
yeah,
really push the envelope, but I would say hers is definitely a very watered down version.
okay. So that probably I said probably twice. That is what they'll probably end up doing, I would think.
But to your point though with Sansa is that in the stories she was treated really bad when she was I forgot what the guy's name was when she went back to Winterfell as the wife of that guy that tortured Theon.
Hmm. Hmm.
He did really bad things to her. Like
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I know, like to your point, watered down version. I know per the story, it was a lot worse.
oh, a
Like,
lot worse.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they
So
would use objects to torture her in bed.
yeah, yeah. So like, I get that, and so use that narrative to what your expectations are with House. I think that's what we'll end up getting.
Yeah, like a flash sequence, very brief, very vague. Because like even though I love House of Dragons, or sorry, I love Game of Thrones, and I so far I'm really loving what I see with House of Dragons. But some of the stuff they have is too graphic to show.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think like episode one already, and even to some capacity, what happened in two, like there was already some, like, at least for me, some jaw dropping moments or eye opening moments, and just like, oh wow, like this is all what we're getting already, and it's only first and second episode. Like, what the hell? Um, so yeah, I know we got a lot more in store, so we'll see. Oh, and I think we talked about this too. I think you mentioned that the season one was like 8 episodes, but I think I read it's 10.
Oh, is it 10? I mean, it's possible. I know when they first
I
pitched
read,
it, it was supposed to be 8.
yeah, I think I read it's 10.
Okay, so that means the time jump might not happen until episode 4 then. But going to the time jump part is I feel bad for Rhaenys, the princess of the king.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are really liking her character and her portrayal, and I feel bad for people that don't know that in a couple episodes there's gonna be a huge time skip where she's no longer the person that plays her.
Hmm. Oh yeah, because of the age. Yeah,
Yeah, because the age thing, and it just makes me feel like people are really loving Rhaenyra right now,
Rhaenyra. Yeah,
and then there's gonna be another actress swap very soon.
yeah.
but
It is what it is.
but I'm looking forward to it only because the person that plays I forgot, god dang, Alicent Hightower, the daughter that's trying to
Yeah,
seduce the king. She's
yeah.
gonna be played by Olivia Cook, I think that's her name, and I'm a huge fan of her. She's played in a lot of things like Ready Player One, The Bates Motel. So she's a good actress, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her in the show. And supposedly, Elizabeth Olsen might be signing on for House of Dragons season 2.
Who's that?
You don't know who Elizabeth Olsen is? You know who the Olsen twins are, though, right?
Yeah.
So I believe she's the younger sister. She's also Elizabeth Olsen has recently taken her claim to fame in Godzilla and also Wanda Maximoff from the Marvel movies. Um, One, I think she's beautiful, and I think she's also a great actress too. And I'm really happy to see her come to House of Dragons if it's true. I don't know what
Like,
character.
I did more than just acting.
Well, no, like she has like with what I've seen from WandaVision and the second Doctor Strange movie, she has the dramatic talent to play a character in House of Dragons, and she also has a look too. Um, I don't know which character she's gonna play in season 2, I'm
Hmm.
hoping it's Melisandre or whatever her name is, the Red Witch from Game of Thrones. I'm hoping she
Hmm.
plays her, but no one knows what character she's playing yet. But
Hmm.
if the rumors are true, I'm really looking forward to that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to everything. I just the job that they do is just nothing short of amazing. I mean, it's just so fun to watch.
I do. I wish sometimes I wish Toothless was here because last episode I was talking about the seduction that's happening. You can even tell in episode one the seduction that's happening between Allison Hightower and the King,
Hmm.
and Matt was like, "No, it's not going to happen," and it happened. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
you cannot deny the info."
oh yeah, no, I mean it was,
It was writing on the wall from the first episode.
yeah, I mean you knew it was, but like oh, I don't want to go off the rails and talk about what ifs and because you know a lot of the what ifs and I don't, so that's why I don't want to talk about it. But as much as I know and don't know, like I'm looking forward to see how things do end up happening with certain characters and
Which characters are you looking forward to the most? Because I'm personally looking forward to Alicent or Alicent. I'm probably gonna screw her name up multiple times, but she's a
Mhm.
character I'm looking forward to for what happens in the future. And then same thing with Daemon Targaryen.
Damon for sure. Like the first episode, like oh my god, like he's like he kind of really reminds me of like a Final Fantasy character, like not like Sephiroth Final Fantasy, but like I mean, but just like he the first episode, I guess he kind of remind. I'm wondering if he has like a Jamie Lannister type arc.
Yes. Well,
Well,
no.
yes.
Well,
Well,
his skill is like in the story is like that of Legends. Like he's like Ned Stark, Jamie Lannister skill level for combat. But their story, like if we're going to theory crafting, obviously I know, but there is potential redemption for him, and you can see
correct.
that with episode 2
Yeah.
when Rhaenyra and Daemon were doing with the egg conflict. He was
Hmm.
like, "I want to do this as a retaliation, but I still care about you, and I'm going to give you the
Hmm.
egg back."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that's why I was like, this is good. Like I think I don't want to say he's right now my favorite, but like that's the one that interests me the most for sure.
Combat wise, he's my favorite because there's a lot of things that happen. Um, that they haven't showed him, but they might show in season one, like the finale, because there's gonna be obviously all the Game of Thrones episode 9 or whatever is always a big battle sequence.
Hmm.
I can't wait to see his dragon in action.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's. I don't think it's happening this season, but I know there's actual dragon riding fights, which to me sounds so crazy to see how they're going to pull that off. I
And
mean,
some of them are
we
insane.
saw some in in the regular Game of Thrones, but
Not to the
like
extent that's gonna be shown here.
exactly, like it's going to be entirely different. Like I'm like depicting like chain and then dragon flying and jumping onto the other one and killing and like oh my god, like yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, like what we've seen in Game of Thrones is like novice level of writing, and these are experienced Targaryens that know how to handle
Correct.
dragons.
Correct, yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be nice, super nice. Can't
And
wait.
the one thing like I said this in episode 1, their setting for like just like the environment and all that stuff is just nonstop impressing me. Like showing Dragonstone at its peak of being just one full of people, seeing the walls, the bridge across the sea is just blowing my mind on how awesome and beautiful it looks.
Is Damon the one that actually makes the table in Dragonstone? The one
I
that turns it into like a like the war kind of thing?
I can't remember. It could be Damon or it could have been Aegon when he went there the first time.
Hmm.
But like I said, I don't know because there's minor details like that I just can't remember.
Because I think they were obviously in that room, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't show the table, so I don't think it really exists yet, right?
I can't speak too much on it because I really don't know. But I mean, if he does create it, I would love to see that because that table was massive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
they didn't say what it was made of. It wasn't made out of obsidian or dragonstone, was it? Or whatever, dragon glass?
I thought it was made out of dragon glass.
Was it? It kind of
Yeah,
looked like it with all the ridges in it.
yeah, I think so. But but like, yeah, don't quote me either. I want to say it was made out of dragon glass because that's where they get dragon glass from. It's
Yeah.
from Dragonstone, so it would only make sense.
One thing I am curious about and I know they didn't talk about this in Game of Thrones because they kind of just shelved it, with a lot of the magic and the Valyrian blades.
Hmm.
But one thing that I hope they do more of, which I believe they do, but I don't know how they're going to depict in the show, is Rhaenyra got the Dark Sister from Daemon in the first episode as in the form of a necklace,
Okay.
and I wonder if Rhaenyra is gonna melt that down and turn it back into a sword
Hmm.
or a dagger.
Maybe.
Because
But
Valyrian steel has, or Valyrian blades have a very special history in
oh, yeah.
that lore in
Well,
that world.
well, well, and you just got me thinking. I meant to ask this when she got the dagger from her dad. Is that the same one that Arya ends up getting?
If you honestly, I can't remember much of the dagger. Maybe it was because, well, I don't know, because the dagger that Arya has came from Jaime Lannister because he took it off of Littlefinger after they killed her. And I do know that the dagger was from the Lannisters, but the Lannisters stole it from the Targaryens. So maybe
Because I mean, they did put a little camera emphasis on it,
they did, and it's possible it
and,
could be because I know that there's a bunch of
and
handoffs from the Targaryens to the Lannisters to Littlefinger to Arya.
yeah, and they obviously tried to throw a lot of those Easter eggs to throw the direct tie-in to Game of Thrones. So I forgot to ask that before because I remember seeing that. I was like, "Ooh, is that the one that she used?"
I can't say with
Um,
confirmation, but
yeah,
it's highly likely.
highly likely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool,
but
cool.
yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. I can't wait to see.
Oh, I just remembered. Well, I mean, I'm still gonna watch episode 3 on Sunday, but I just remembered I got the pay-per-view to go to. But I will watch it the moment I get home.
So, can you make any predictions? Because obviously, this one I could talk about because I've had this prediction because I can't remember too much of the story. But
Well,
it's related to the Iron Throne with the king. Because if you've seen his finger in episode 2, it's very dysmorphed and right,
it's it's almost
dead rat pretty
turning.
much.
Yeah, which is so bizarre that he got it from a just a quick stick of the blade, but whatever.
But I think the chair
Well,
was poisoned from the original blades, and they just never fixed it. I think that's why when he's getting these nicks and cuts, that's why they're not healing. Like the one on his back, the one on his finger.
yeah, I kind of forgot the lore on that. But predictions. I know you keep mentioning time skips, but it almost seems like they're doing at least like a year time skip in this episode because
It's gonna
she's
be
already
slowly
gonna
over
bear
time.
a child. Yeah, so I was like, when I saw the preview, I was like, damn, that's kind of moving fast.
Well,
I mean,
episode one to episode 2 has been 18 months.
I know, like they keep telling that there's like no war and the realm is quiet and all that stuff. So it kind of makes sense. Like, what kind of stories are we going to tell if there's like no conflict, right? Like they're setting up conflict, um, but it is almost like one of those things like, oh, everything's honky dory. So I kind of understand it, but yeah, I mean that much I noticed. So it's hard for me to say what I expect. I just expect another masterpiece.
And so, as you mentioned, the time skip. So they
Mhm.
are gonna slowly bring it to you, and eventually there's gonna be like a massive jump where you see like a drastic change with the character. Um, but I do like how they're giving you this smooth transition. Like episode 1 to episode 2, there's an 18-month period where they switch,
Mhm.
and then, or I could be wrong. I know it was a while. It's almost like a year because they were talking about the king mourning his wife and all that stuff. But in Game of Thrones season 8, I feel like that's where they suffered and they got a lot of hatred because from episode 1 to the final episode, there was like almost a year period where they were getting ready, and they were just almost jump cutting it until like instead of making like a smooth transition.
The difference between and this is gonna I'm gonna sound like an apologist here, but the reason why I was fine with it at the end is because once again you're talking about this show setting up conflict versus the other show was
Ending in conflict.
finalizing conflict. You had seasons upon seasons showing the downfall of all these different houses where the men are killed off and the name is done. Like the houses are done. So it's like, yeah, what do you think is going to happen when you only have a camera to go to like 3 different houses. Like, what did you expect? Um,
I'm not gonna criticize it because like I think they learned a lot from the mistakes from season 8, and that's why they're making this time jump much smoother in House of Dragons because they realized that was one of the criticisms. But like overall story, like I think my only negative with season 8 is really how the Night King died, and that's with
I
Arya.
think, yeah, I think we could all, most people could agree with that. Even I could agree with that. But like, as far as like the time skipping aspect and all that stuff, like that didn't bother me one bit. I mean, I always want more Game of Thrones, so I was just more definitely upset that it ended. But like, I kind of understood a lot of it. To me, I still don't understand why, in my opinion, they didn't just put the last final episode out like in the theaters. Like, had it be this like 2 hour extravaganza or something. Like, they could have easily done it and been super successful, in my opinion. But it is
I'm
what it
glad they
is.
kept it on HBO because I didn't want to go. I mean, like it'd be nice to see it in theaters, but I didn't want to pay extra. I think it should. I think the ticket should have been free if they did it for HBO members because I don't want to pay extra for that. But you probably haven't read this, but George R. R. Martin has been talking. He's been very vocal again, and he's getting a lot of criticism. He says that he didn't want Game of Thrones to end. He wanted it to be at least like he was asking for 13 seasons, but he was settling for 10. And I'm like, it's almost like you're almost trying to give yourself a way out because he keeps saying that the people that want to make the show wanted to make more seasons. He wanted more seasons, but the head of the food chain said no, we're going to cut it at 10. I feel like they're using someone as an scapegoat for well, I'm not going to see it as a failure because I liked it, especially with the potential story setting up for the sequel with the Jon Snow spinoff and the Arya spinoff in the future, but it's just weird hearing George R. R. Martin, especially with his lazy storytelling for the final book, him blaming a lot of these people for what people might deem as a failure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, I mean, it's not entirely his fault either. I mean, you can't rush
A masterpiece.
art.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can't rush creativity. Like, it's just bad timing. I mean, the show's success was huge, and it caught up. I think correct me if I'm wrong because I stopped watching it, but kind of did it similarly happen to Walking Dead a little bit? Like,
Well, The Walking Dead is more an opinionated show because when people said it got bad, I actually came back into the show because I thought it was getting good. So I
no,
think
no, no. I'll take that aspect out. What I meant by using it as a comparison is like, did it ever like catch up to the comics and go further and beyond than what was already written? This was the comparison I'm trying to make.
yes and no. They did catch up to the comics, but they also did their interpretation, which I think a lot of people didn't like. But that's
Okay.
mostly due to actors wanting to move on, like with the whole Rick Grimes thing wanting to leave,
Mm-hmm.
Carl being killed off because Carl was supposed to be the head figure leading forward, but they had to kill him off because the actor
Yeah,
wanted to
I
go to
didn't like
college.
Carl. Thank God I didn't like Carl. But anyway, so anyways, yeah, I think it's just also bad timing. Like, you can't rush that kind of shit. You just can't. So if he had writer's block, which he probably won't admit, and he couldn't finish the book, which is basically what happened. Hey, it is what it is. Shit happens.
I think he's also scared to write the final book
That is very
because
probably
of
true as
the
well.
criticism of the show. I think he's like
Oh,
saying, "Oh,
that's
if
a
I do this, then they're gonna yell at me."
but see, for his advantage is now that he saw the outcome of what was already his direction anyway, that they didn't like. Now it gives him a chance to come out and look like a good guy, and be like, oh yeah, this is what I really wanted. No, you
Even though
don't.
he gave them the points already, it's like
Yeah,
I like you said, you can't rush the creative process, but I'm not going to give him an excuse for being throwing other people under the bus, even though he gave them bullet points on what to follow.
I agree. I agree. That's you can't do that. I mean, that's not right. But like I said, it was just, dare I say, a slight culmination of a bad storm. Timing didn't was on nobody's side. If I may blame somebody, I just I just can't understand why the hell HBO couldn't, why they didn't do more seasons. Like, I want to be the fly in that room for that decision because
I too would like to know, but I think because they didn't have a finalized story, they wanted to just cut their losses before they went too far off the rails.
I mean,
Because
we have
sometimes stories being dragged on through just by ear can sometimes fail horribly, like
no,
the
you're
criticism
not
that happened.
you're not wrong. And that last season, in its own right, took a long time, double the amount of time of any other season because of all the CGI they had to do with the dragons and shit. So people had to wait long enough anyway. But that didn't deter anybody, right?
No.
But to your point, if it hypothetically, if it dragged double that length, could they have lost, people? Maybe, but yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a bad situation, I think, ultimately.
I'm only going to defend Game of Thrones and their ending because, like I said, the potential sequel, I'm really looking forward to it for another uprising of a Night King or Jon Snow actually learning the source of the Night King from that mountain that he's going to go to later, and Arya traveling to a new continent.
Well, now we really could fall off the rails because, like, I read fan theories galore, and I don't think we've ever had the luxury of talking about all the different fan theories. But, like, there's the one where the Night King is actually Bran the Builder or Bran, and and you read these things and it makes sense. So
He orchestrated his rise to king.
right, it's like it's just so crazy. Or there's still the other ones that I actually wonder if they actually reveal in House of the Dragon somehow. But there was the whole thing about possibly. Well, we know Jon Snow is a Targaryen, but like maybe he was a twin,
Well,
and that
the thing is that Daemon, the character of Daemon and his characteristics, even though Daemon exists in Fire and Blood, they took that character that was supposed to be in Game of Thrones and added more to Daemon because the Gold Cloaks, the Targaryen that was supposed to take Jon's place, was in the Golden Army, and he was coming from Essos to Westeros as a Targaryen, and he was going to ascend his claim to the throne to fight Daenerys. But they scrapped that idea, gave it to Jon. But you could see the ideas that they're going to use there and gave it to Daemon. That's why when he leads the guard with the gold cloaks, you can see a lot of characteristics that that guy was going to use, and they just transferred it over to Daemon to give him a little extra.
yeah, but there's like, I mean that's cool too. But like there was like these theories of like I can't even think of the chick's name, but she was the one with that was the brother of the guy that couldn't walk as well.
Oh
That
yeah,
had,
the
that,
the
that
one that
division.
yeah.
Yeah, so there was suggesting like, oh, maybe somehow, some way they'll put it together that she was a twin of Jon Snow because they kind of had the same hairstyle and all this shit, and maybe she's part Targaryen or even Tyrion Lannister because they had that whole sequence where he did get close to the dragons and they didn't breathe fire on him,
And there was also
and
rumors, even in the show, that there could have been a
Targaryen that raped what's his name's wife at the time,
mhm.
which would have been Tyrion because that's why they hated Tyrion so much because he wasn't a real Lannister.
And his depiction in the books, his
It's
hair
totally
was
different.
lighter colored, more toward a
Yeah,
Targaryen.
yeah. So like, and it all makes sense with like the three-headed dragon and the sigil and all this stuff. So like, there's just so many good things that they did not bring into light at all in the show, or they hinted, right, and that's why the fan theories happened, but they were just non-existable in the end.
And with House
But
of Dragon,
but
I'm sorry,
but
go ahead.
that's how you plant really good seeds for really great storytelling. Is you tease it with enough proof. But if you have long-term plans, like now they're doing these side shows, and now we have a House of Dragons as a prequel, which may reveal or strongly reveal some of these fan theories, I think is amazing.
And I think, and honestly, I think this is also a good thing too, because same thing with Star Wars. We got Episode 4, 5, and 6, and that gave you so much room to build a future and so much room to add story to the past. And I think,
And
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna
Well,
say that's what we're seeing with House of Dragons. That they with whatever they build with Game of Thrones, you're gonna see more tightening of the story with House of Dragons.
and George R. R. already said that he wants to build now this franchise to be like a DC or sorry
Star
DC like
Wars.
Marvel universe or Star Wars universe. Like he's already come out and said that. So
Hmm.
with all that said, despite his writer's block for a final book for Song of Fire and Ice, um, he actually has motivation to do a whole universe. So
I do find it interesting. I don't want to talk too much about the second part, but like
mhm,
with God, I keep Tolkien, the guy that made Lord of the Rings.
mhm,
They showed his story of Lord of the Rings, which is the final cut, the final story of how Sauron falls. But he made The Hobbit before the Lord of the Rings, and he also made another story. Um, I could be butchering the name, but it's like similar, like the rise of Sauron's power and the fall of Morgoth, his master before him. And it's weird how both fantasies from George R. R. Martin to Tolkien, they both go with the final version and then branch backwards to the beginning. And I wonder
mhm.
if this is like intentional, just so they can keep flushing the story out, or if it's because it just makes more sense to go from the end to the beginning.
I'm sure there's a model for this. I don't know. Like I don't know how that branches off and webs out, but either way, we're the recipients of watching quality
I feel like we're
storytelling.
very blessed with this fantasy area that's coming out with the Sandman, House of Dragons, Lord of the Rings, Avatar 2, if you like that or not. I feel like we're in another golden age of fantasy that I mentioned before. Um, and I am curious though, because like before we move on from House of Dragons, you know, uh, for people that don't know, House of Dragons originally wasn't going to be the show we got. We were actually going to get
Mhm.
another show, and I can't remember if it was like a prequel with Ned Stark when he was younger, relating to Robert's Rebellion, and then they made that pilot. I think it was like $100 million episode or whatever. They scrapped that, went immediately with House of Dragons because they knew that the story was more fleshed out.
I I don't think it was like a House Stark prequel. I thought
Or was it Aegon's?
I don't remember now. I don't remember. But you are right. They did shoot a pilot that they just pulled the plug on. I don't remember what that story was supposed to be.
For some reason, I'm only remembering Ned Stark, like his younger years, because there was a lot of talk about it before House of Dragons came out. Like, which one is it going to be? Is it going to be Fire and Blood, Aegon, or Ned Stark? And Ned Stark seemed to pop up more. So that's the only reason why I'm saying Ned Stark, it being, like
You
the
could,
star of Robert's
you,
Rebellion.
yeah, you could be right. I don't know definitively. So I can't can't poo poo on it. But like I just don't know. But there was one. There was one like 100%. There
They
was.
spent a lot of money on that pilot, too.
Mhm. Not like Lord of the Rings money, but they did spend like like 100 mil maybe. I think it was.
I think it was 100 million. We
Yeah,
could be wrong about the numbers, but I think 100
yeah,
million was closer to it towards their number.
yeah.
But
But hey,
before, go ahead.
money to. So, no, I'm just saying they got the money to blow. So
Well, not anymore. Warner Brothers is suffering greatly as well because they actually had to cancel production of a lot of their shows because they expended too much of their budgets. So
good.
they're facing a
As long,
Sony problem.
yeah. Well, as long as we get Game of Thrones, I don't care about the rest of them.
But do you have any predictions for characters? Obviously, you said Damon, you like him.
Yeah, no, just right now, just him, unless somebody new
Do
comes along that piques my interest.
you have any predictions with who's going to get with who?
No, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Okay. So I guess we can transfer over to Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So Lord of the Rings of Power came out yesterday. They released 2 episodes, which I think was a smart idea because 2 episodes I feel like is enough to catch you if you're going to be caught. And I had a lot of anticipation for the show because it's for the whole season, which it could be 10 episodes, I believe. I could be wrong about this. They're all about an hour-ish long, but the whole season's budget was $1 billion, the highest ever amount spent for any kind of source of entertainment. Not even movies have reached $1 billion. But I
Yeah,
watched it. I really liked it. I know some people, the ratings right now are pretty high, which I'm happy about. But I do hear some criticism about there being a lot of CGI in it. I personally thought it was done really well, but I know some people get turned off by that and they like more practical effects. But I thought the first 2 episodes were really, really good. Just beautiful on every front, in my opinion. But the question is, even though it was successful, a lot of people liked it. A lot of Lord of the Rings fans liked it. Is it still considered a success because of the $1 billion budget?
Well, $1 billion budget isn't going to be successful after 1, 2 episodes. It probably still won't be considered successful after the whole season has been shown. In my opinion, I haven't seen them yet. I do want to. I don't have an account, but maybe I'll just go ahead and splurge extra money just to see it. So I can't really speak about it. So its title topic is opinions. I don't have one, but I do want to watch them. But since you did see them, and we could obviously draw comparisons without totally diving back into the previous topic, but how do you rate them against each other? I'm sorry to put you in that position, but
So obviously, there's only 2 episodes.
we got 2 of each right now, right? So
Yeah.
let's do it.
I hate, like, both are fantastic. I love
Yeah.
both of them. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But the hype for Lord of the Rings for me is so much higher because
Mhm.
they were very vague on a lot of things in the trailers. They almost undersold themselves, but
Mhm.
luckily that's not the case because there's so much beauty in this show.
Mhm.
And the time place of this happening is happening before the war broke out. When you seen Lord of the Rings, they showed Sauron's rise to power before his downfall, and then obviously Lord of the Rings happened. This is happening before the rise of Sauron. So you're seeing Elrond, which was played by Hugo Weavings as a younger character. You're seeing his character progression. You're seeing God, I forgot her name. She's the Lady of Light. She's the one that turned like all dark and gray when she was angry. You see
Okay.
her before she got her powers. You are also getting more story on Morgoth, which was the real master of Sauron before Sauron took his ascension. Because Sauron was a general to Morgoth, and then he was defeated on another continent, the continent of the elves, of the Eternal Light or whatever. And then they went over to Middle Earth, and then they got introduced to new races like the dwarves, the hobbits, the humans, etc. And then they're talking about the conflicts that they had, where the humans sided with Morgoth, and then obviously we learned with Lord of the Rings, they made the same mistake again by siding with Sauron with the Ring of Power. There's just a lot of story that we knew before from Lord of the Rings and Hobbit that are finally being showed now and more in depth, and I think it's great. And I also think they're taking some inspiration from the video games that weren't considered canon, but
Hmm.
are making more official, like the Shadow of Mordor, the Shadow of War. They're making those stories more official by bringing Celebrimbor, which is the craftsman that made the Rings of Power. And right now, with the first 2 episodes, you're seeing Celebrimbor Elrond, which was played by Hugo Weavings in the older movies and the other movies. They're starting to make their rounds with getting all the races to build this massive structure to have enough power to construct these rings that they want to make. But also, while this is happening, um, the girl, which I forgot her name is, I think is Galadriel. It's a weird name. Like I said, horrible fantasy names. Something with a G. She's still convinced that Sauron's out there and Morgoth's army is still out there, because so far she's hunting down the remnants of their army. Because people are thinking that they were vanished, they haven't seen orcs for years, but she's like, no, there's still a feeling, and she's been hunting them down. She's been getting this feeling for some reason. The way they're pitching this is that her anger and her obsession with Sauron is kind of what's giving him power. And I like how there's 2 stories of like the construction of the rings and then Sauron's return, uh, bringing back the Dark Army. And I think it's good. I think there's a lot of story that we've seen from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings that are finally brought full front, and I can't wait to see the armies, the battles, because they showed little pics here and there in the episode 1, and it's gonna look amazing when there's a big battle sequence. But so far, I'm very happy with how they're telling the story.
So you didn't answer which one you liked better.
Well, like I said, because I've been more of a Lord of the Rings fan longer. When I say Lord of the Rings, only because I'm really into the story. I can't wait to see more characters, the younger characters that we've seen before, and also with this $1 billion budget, I can't wait to see what they can do visually.
Yeah.
Like so far, you can see where the money went visually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the I don't want to say it's the ultimate payoff, pun intended, but but the fact like it costed that much, like you like as for us, we want to really see where that money went. I mean, we know, I think, and have a pretty uh, good idea. It's going to CGI. It's not like we know a particular actor got paid a shit ton of money, or actors plural. But um, yeah, to know that that was the budget. I mean, that is just,
Like each episode feels like a movie.
oh my god. That just, well, kind of feel that way with Lord of the Rings a little bit, but or I'm saying Lord of the Rings. I'm sorry, Game of Thrones. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I gotta watch it. I gotta watch it. I mean, I've watched all the Hobbit and the regular Lord of the Rings, so I got to get on the show too. I just don't know a lot of the lore like you do, but that's fine. So I consume it for what it is.
So, because like they given us a lot of foundation to work with from the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, to know what these
Mm-hmm.
characters are going through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's only 2 episodes, so how they're gonna make the story happen, is still yet to be seen. But they did introduce a character that's not canon. There's this new character called Orin, which I love that they introduced because it gives you speculation on how Sauron's going to come back. Orin wasn't depicted in any Tolkien's books. He's a completely new character. And my theory for Orin is that he's the physical representation of Sauron, while his power source is a broken sword that a kid has, and his life is also tied to Galadriel because of her obsession, and all three are eventually going to combine at the end of the season to bring Sauron's resurrection again. Because this character Orin has a lot of power, like a lot of natural power, where he can make wind, trees, the sun turn dark. He's got a lot of power. And also his entrance in the show is exactly how Sauron started. A giant fireball going to Mordor, with the tower. And it's just like that. That's my theory, is that this new character Orin is just the physical body of Sauron, but there still needs to be two components to tie them together to make the full Sauron.
Interesting. Yeah, I gotta check it out somehow, some way. So, it's kind of interesting that they're doing it the week by week format too. I actually prefer it that way because it gives that additional build up. I kind of like that.
I think they're also doing it for money purposes. Like obviously you get 4 episodes per week, so that's 1 sub, but they need to make their money somehow. Because like I said, even though it's $1 billion, and I personally think it's a success because of how well it's received and whatever, but if the views aren't there, it's still considered a loss. Because like, for example, the biggest movies that come out, like Avatar, Avengers Endgame, they were like $2 million to make, or $200 million to make, and then they've reached at their peak maybe $1 billion, and that's with a lot of views brought to them. Amazon has to start with $1 billion, so even if they make 800 million, back, that's still considered a loss.
It's still a loss, yeah. It's crazy. It's just so freaking mind blowing. Yeah, I mean the week by week format is obviously a strategic way to try to make money back, but I think you might have mentioned this already. You haven't seen any type of buy rate for it, right, or view rate?
I haven't. I mean, they probably have it out there. I just didn't do the research, but like, I'm hoping it beats House of Dragons because I want this to succeed. That's how invested I am into this. But I don't think it is. I don't think.
No, that's hard. I mean, because how many people? I mean, how many active subscribers do you think they even have? Do you think they even have 13 million plus?
I think they have the subscribers, but I think a lot of them subscribers don't know that they have Amazon Video. Because a lot of their subscribers are because of Amazon Prime for the shipping. But a lot of people don't even realize that they get music and videos with it. Like my grandma had Prime and she didn't even know she had it.
So Prime or video comes packaged with Prime?
Yes.
Interesting.
Obviously, you could buy the video separately for like $14.99 a month, whatever it is. But a lot of people have Prime, and I think that's what might hurt them, is that they don't know they have video too.
Yeah, interesting.
But I'm really hoping this succeeds. But because of that $1 billion budget that they used, the success rate is very hard to achieve. Even if, like I said, it's reviewed well, even if it's viewed by all the lovers that see it, if they don't make that $1 billion back, it's a loss. And that's what concerns me, is that even though it's fantastic, if it doesn't get that money back, we might not see another one.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is nuts.
Because like, there's only been a handful of movies that even broke $1 billion in return. Like I said, there's only been like 4 movies, and they're considered a success because their budget was only $200 million.
Well, and then the difference too with movies versus this is not only do they have an opportunity to make their money in theaters, but they have additional opportunities to make their money in digital sales, physical sales, even just merch. Versus this is just streaming. There's probably, I mean, I could be wrong, but there's probably zero intent to push this to DVDs.
I mean, they'll probably push it to like a physical media, like DVD, 4K, whatever.
Think
But
they will? Does that,
I think they
how
will.
often does that happen with streaming shows?
Well,
I mean, I know it
look at Game
happens
of Thrones and
probably
House
with
of Dragons, for
HBO, but
example.
that's HBO. HBO's different. Their home box office. How like does Stranger Things have DVDs?
I'm gonna say no, but I could be wrong about this.
Yeah. So like
Netflix isn't
I
known
don't
for
know.
making things, but I think with Lord of the Rings being such a big name brand, I think they
Mhm.
would push physical media on this.
Well, I think also too, as I'm now thinking to keep talking about this, like if their streaming numbers aren't there, like hypothetically, let's say they only recoup 20% or 25% of that back just on I mean that'd be huge losses there, but then that may trigger them to push to DVD just to see if what their sales will be for those that didn't want to get the streaming service, and then add obviously extra content and stuff that you probably won't get through a digital avenue unless they do release it. But yeah, that's very interesting, man. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, I could keep talking about the same thing over and over again, but it's just like because their ceiling was so high with their budget, it's like that's so hard to still come back from. And
Even
like,
just to break, and even if they break even, that still might not be
it would be considered a
cause
loss
for
still.
them. Well, not necessarily a loss, but that might not give them cause to do another one, even just to break even.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, if
Like,
we're just making our money
with that,
back, then why would we even do this? No profits.
I mean, unless they do it again, just cut the budget in half. I don't know.
Realistically, they could do it, but if you set the first standard to being so high, it's
Yeah,
hard to cut that budget back down.
and that's maybe where they shot themselves in the foot. I mean, you look at how successful Game of Thrones is, and we don't know exactly how much every episode their budget is, but like maybe that was a very bad business decision up front. I mean, look at even The Witcher. I don't know what their budget is, but The Witcher was great for what it is.
Their budget was much lower than House of Dragons, and definitely much lower than Rings of Power.
Yeah, so like,
I think their budget was maybe around like 70 or 100 million for the whole season.
yeah, right. So like, yeah, I don't.
Like it was definitely low on the totem pole money wise.
That's crazy. Well,
But that's where practical effects get
time
you
will
compared to
tell.
digital effects. Like digital effects cost more because of time and effort.
Oh, I
Um,
understand. I understand all that, but like, and now it even makes me wonder. Like, I mean, even like Warcraft looked very beautiful, but I don't recall what their budget was.
oh, I can't say because it's made by Legendary Pictures. I think
The Legend has a lot of money.
yeah, and they also spent a lot of money digitally. Like so, it was probably a pretty hefty budget. But I know that even if they do push media, I'm gonna buy it like I bought The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I have to own it. But I really do hope the success. But the way for their success is very hard, and it's gonna rely on those numbers because I don't see any. Because one, I haven't seen any merchandise. Most likely they might push it later. There's no advertising on any of the video. It's just if you have video, you just watch it, no ads, nothing. Which I like because I don't want my stuff interrupted.
That's true.
But they need them views, man, and I'll keep promoting it, keep pushing it because that's how much I love it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll check it out at some point, and we'll get to have a deeper dive on it.
Yeah, but it does concern me, and hopefully this changes as time progresses. But like the reviews are 87%. I think a lot of the criticism was with the CG because there's not a lot of practical effects being used compared to House of Dragons where there's a lot of practical effects being used.
Yeah,
So we'll see. And
yeah,
I think they also hurt themselves by releasing side by side with House of Dragons.
yeah. That probably wasn't a good marketing move either. But what
But
are you
we'll
gonna
see.
do?
We'll see.
What are
I'm
you
looking
gonna-
forward to the story. I think it's going to be great, especially with the Kellen Brimbor story and maybe a merger with another character. For people that haven't seen it, there's Kellen Brimbor dies. We all know that it's been said in Lord of the Rings, but
I didn't know this.
but uh, non-canon wise, there might be a spiritual merger with another character,
Womp, chicka, womp, womp.
and they do a lot of really cool
These
power
good old-fashioned
effects.
spiritual mergers.
But is there anything you want to talk about, or is that it?
Um, no, I think that probably is it. I can't think of anything else I'd want to bring up.
All right. Well, I guess that'll be it for episode 6 of the Out of Man podcast. Like we said earlier, unfortunately, we don't know if we're gonna have one next week or the week after
Y'all
that.
have to blame me for that one. But if there's a way we could figure this out, I would happily do it, even if it's via my cell phone. But me and Josh will discuss that and see if we could bring you a couple episodes during my transition here.
But like I've said with every episode, make sure to follow us on social media. That's the best way to keep updated. There'll be links to see both of our socials in the description, and we will let you know if there is one for any of the following weeks. But we will return whenever things get settled with all the stuff. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Thank you.